Lama da jambe yang la gube cha za lo kanshi changju xin wan zhong du du de bong ji sa dan ka la gun kya jin dor je dong do dan le ko lo me da re dan kan re chen we char be ba zhulu nambara chuje do de me do da je changju tol je zamba na Chanbe tuge le bala pamze zobe sangye ganyen tela guja tsai kyege shenge tele do samdan jorba pezobe chanjo tamba tuge tse sayan nambara chudu ye Jiandan cujime le zhu xin, sedan zinju gongpara zi, samde shera tarjin be, parulo qinzo ke cha ca, zhogun tangbo tangba na, jiden ke ba tamche ga, denam shindo toba ge, mude che ba tada cha, Tele kege denpa ne nime we shin chen de namba gundo mi lo we za la ke la da kya che kege song ra singye ra la che ji de cha pa na chang da kyab ju gu ba la giro la ye la ma wa da ra shum Toba kame droga da chanson geba ne jo so chaba toba teda gun chuge pamze kyo la de kege chanchu chonye ne dreve tenze ngo tsara che sibe sele madrulo wa kuso dawe babu dang Yege guzo mi se bara ke la pe bara cha wo she ge me da ja je song wa gong bo ke la da kya che kya we du de du wa da mo de ma de pam se da ye de lo ma chang me zhuo ya se da ba long de ze Tenze le zo tong wa na ke ge yuan den tuen ye be. Chang ju le do ju ba da la yang ke la da gya che. Ke ge se ne jang be yang lo ma sha ra da de bu. Chang ba gya za dang ba la ze sem shen su she te zong sa. Kege yenden meche ca sege yenden tongwe kum. Kyaren sharwe sije ge peme nyinge vese ko. Cheta wadan chinye che kege namba gunye be. Shebe chinle tenshin do juba ke la da cha ca. Tedra jove lama shage re pura shimbe dongye le chomba. Chomde zobe sangye deba ye jove kunge nyudu tobara sho. Lama dan gombo jeze jambe yang la gube cha za lo. Kangye le zhe jimye jenda nye dara namda rapsa be. Chinye tengun chi shen si je nige tugara le bamzen. Kanda sibe zera ma re men tong dong a gisre be. Zhozo gun la pu jie da ze yen la chu jue yang de song. Chudara che zhuo nye mo nye long le ge zha zhuo zhu ze jing. Ma re mi se dung la nyu gu chi nye zhi ze ra je nam. De ne da jin sa ju ta zun yun den lu zo ge se tu bu ku. Chu zha ju da ju nye gen je da le mi se jiang be yang la du zhen de ke ge. Kera vesere ge da le de mo me ba rap sa ne 噶当天学雄罗多巴音，乐者波别难忘，萨多颂。So I'd like to first say greetings to everyone here, and I hope you're all doing well.
首先法王子想向大家问好，希望大家一切都好。
And so, as I promised about 2 weeks ago, today I will be speaking about the proper way to receive the Dharma from the spiritual teacher.
就像我们2周之前所说的，我们今天会说如何从善知识那里如法的听闻佛法。
And along with that, because today happens to coincide with the 651st year passing anniversary of Gyase Ngöchu Tome, who was the author of the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva that celebrated work. Because it is his anniversary today, I also decided and thought it would be very good if we could if I could start teaching, and if we could all practice the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva starting from today as well.
今天正好恰巧也是图美桑杰仁波切过世圆寂651周年的纪念日，他也是佛子行37颂的作者，所以我们今天也会讲佛子行37颂。
So this work is a very important work. It is very famous, well known, and all of the practices that is required to attain enlightenment is all included in this text. So basically, it is sort of like a condensed version of the Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva, which is, of course, quite extensive. But if one cannot study that, if you study this alone, it is also sufficient.
这是一个非常著名的颂词，它是可以说是寂天菩萨所写的入行论的一个浓缩品。短短的一个偈颂里面包含了一切深深和广大的意要。
So the author himself is he lived around in the 14th century, and he was an emanation of Lokdeshwara, the Bodhisattva or Buddha of compassion.
这个作者在14世纪左右的时候出生，他是大悲观世音菩萨的化身。
And if you are able to read his biography, it is very beautiful. His biography is very beautiful because his whole life is all about the practice of compassion. He took the practice of compassion as his main practice, and every action that he did, whether it was since beginning when he was a child, whether he was playing, or later on when he grew up and was a teenager and began learning the actual Dharma, and after that, even after he completed his studies, when he actually taught the Dharma to others, or when he meditated upon the Dharma himself, everything became a cause. Everything benefited sentient beings and became a cause for others to attain enlightenment.
如果我们有机会读诵这位尊者的传记的话，这是一个非常动人的传记，因为尊者的一生都是行持于大悲心当中。他每一个行为，不管是他从小玩耍的时候，还是长大7年学佛的时候，到后来传法，或者是以及个人修持等等，所有的所作所为都是以利他为出发心，都是为了让其他的众生能够证悟而行持。
And so basically he is like a Bodhisattva role model. So if you want to be a good Bodhisattva, then if you copy, if you can learn from his life example, then everything will work out perfectly fine. And so therefore, if I do not know if there is any of his biographies available in Chinese, but if there is, it is good to read those.
他可以说是我们把他当做一个佛菩萨的偶像，我们向他来学习。不知道他的传记有没有被翻译成中文？如果有翻译成中文的话，我们可以各自学习。
So anyway, the way I have, I will be teaching this 37 practices of a Bodhisattva is, of course, bi-weekly. It will not be the main focus of the teaching. The main focus will, of course, be the same. It will be clarifying the sage's intent, but I will teach this as a side teaching. And it will be like one verse every 2 weeks. So going to too much at one go it wouldn't be that great, because the main thing that is what is most important is not the number of verses that you hear from the teacher, not the amount. It doesn't have to be a big number of teachings or practices that you do, but whatever it is, whatever practice you do, even if it is a little, you have to do that little bit of practice that you have been assigned with. You have to do that very well. So that is the main thing that we need to do. So therefore, there's not really a rush. So I thought we would just go, I will teach one verse every 2 weeks.
这个佛子行37颂，我们还是和我们平时的讲课一样，是2周学习，是每2周学习。但是这个佛子行37颂不会是我们的重点，重点还是我们之前讲文的牟尼密意显明论。所以这个佛子行37颂，我们会每周讲一个颂词。一次说太多的话也不是特别的有用，因为我们还是要把重点放在质量上，而不是放在数量上。这就像我们平时的修行一样，不管是修什么，就算是学很少的一部分，学一点点的话，也要把侧重点放在学修上，而不是放在这个数量上。所以我们不着急，每2周学一个佛子行37颂的颂词。
So the way I will be teaching it is I will first recite the verse and then explain the meaning of the verse. And then after explaining the meaning, if it is possible, I will of course also speak of the biography of Gyaltsen Wujud Thome as well. There exists a biography of Gyaltsen Wujud Thome that is taught with each verse, because whatever Gyaltsen Wujud Thome taught to others, he himself practiced that. So therefore, when you speak of each verse from the 37 practices of Bodhisattva, you can connect it with life, with different life events, with many of his life events. So therefore, I will speak of his life events, some stories supporting the verses, and then also I will speak of some Buddhist stories as well to broaden the listener's understanding of the verses. And then after that is done, in the end, we will also kind of see what is the essence of the verse, what is the main meaning that the verse is conveying, what is the main message.
我们讲诵这个的方法是，法王子会先念一下这个颂词的本身，然后念完之后会对这个颂词做解释。如果有可能的话，在解释这个颂词的时候，还会穿杂图美桑波尊者的他自己的传记，因为图美桑波尊者他教授的每一个颂词里面都有他自己对应的修持，都有他自己亲身行持这一些颂词的行为，所以我们在讲文的时候也会讲一些他自己的公案，让我们更加加深印象，也会讲一些其他佛教里面的公案。然后我们这些全部都讲完结束之后，我们会再看这个整个佛子行37颂的精华是什么。
And so anyway, to begin today's teaching, there will not be any kind of verse, because I'm just going to speak directly. Also, another thing that I would like to mention is, because it is bi-weekly, the teaching is bi-weekly, it is a very good opportunity during that gap, the 14 days gap, until the next teaching comes around, to practice each verse. So, for example, today I will speak of the first verse, the homage, and the homage, which is at the beginning of the practice of the walk. And then after that is done, because we have a number of 14 days before the next teaching starts, I hope that you can apply that verse to your daily life every day. Whether you're happy, try to apply that verse to think about it. Whether you're sad, try to think about that verse. And even if you're not really either happy or sad, try to think about that verse. And see if there's any way, that verse can help you in all of those different moments, in whatever kind of different mood you are in every day.
我们今天讲完这个佛子行37颂的话，不会念颂词，法王子就会直接的解释，就直接说。然后法王子希望，因为我们这个颂词是每2周才说一次，所以法王子希望在这个2周的时间的空闲当中，也就是这14天当中，我们师兄们能够行持所教授的这个颂词里面的意思。比如说我们今天开始讲顶礼句，然后希望之后我们每一次学习的这个颂词都能够我们自己运用到我们自己的生活当中，不管是我们感觉到开心不开心，或者是无喜无悲的时候，都要去意念去思考我们所学习的颂词，然后怎么样把它运用到生活当中，然后看看能不能帮到我们。
So of course, I will give explanations on the verse, but then after that is done during the 14 days, I hope that you can explore more on the verse by yourselves. And maybe by the end of the day, after having thought about the verse several times in that day, then try to maybe take notes, like sort of write a diary, a journal or something like that. And you can write down what you need. What it would be good if you can write is if you can write what you think you learned from that verse, what kind of new understanding you got from that verse by thinking of that verse today. So today, for example, today on the first day, you write down what you... So first, of course, you think about it. Then after you think about it, you might get some kind of realization or a better understanding of the verse. It doesn't need to be exactly right or wrong, just whatever understanding you get. Then try to write that down, keep it in the record. And then on the second day, you write something like that again, whatever understanding you get. And then by the end of 14 days, you will have written quite a lot about your understanding of that verse. And so it's a good time you would have meditated or thought about each verse for a number of 14 days, which is a very good amount of time. And so I hope that you can do that.
我们今天在解释完这个颂词之后，然后包括我们之后的学修当中，法王子希望我们在听完这些解释之后，我们自己能够各自的能够深入的去探索这些颂词。比如说法王子希望我们在一篇结束之后，我们在一篇思索了我们今天所学修的这个颂词之后，我们能够写下我们对这个颂词的感受以及对这个颂词的体悟。比如说我们今天一天思索这些颂词之后，我们自己反思一下，我们有没有得到什么新的感悟，有没有得到什么新的收获。比如说我们今天在一天的文思的这个颂词之后，我们有没有什么新的认识。而且的话，这个新的收获，不管它是对还是错，我们都可以把它记录下来。然后等到第2天的话，我们再经过1天的思考之后，再写下来新的感受或者是收获。然后这样14天过去了之后，我们就会积累了很多我们这14天当中我们对这个颂词的思考以及感悟。
And when thinking about it, since it would only be kind of like a one verse every 2 weeks, it might take quite a long time for it to complete. So starting from today, it may only complete around in 2022, around May of 2022. So that is quite a long time. I do not know if everyone here will make it through till then with us. But anyway, if you are able to stay with us to the whole study and teaching and the practice, period, that would be great. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, it's not important to rush things. The slower, if you take it slowly, then it is more stable. You're building a more firm or stable foundation for any of the practices. So therefore, we're going to take it very slowly, and because it's a very long time, and during that time, if you of course take it very seriously, it's certain that it will bring a big change to your life, because this is of course, it's all about the service of others. So that is the best way to attain enlightenment, is to the service of others. It is actually the only way to attain enlightenment, which is to helping others. And so this, since this 37 practices of Bodhisattva teaches that, I hope you can all stay with us until the end.
因为我们一周才讲一个颂词，然后我们这个佛子行37颂又有37个颂词，所以这会是一个很长的时间，我们才能把它讲完，大概要到2022年的5月才能把它讲完。不知道届时是不是每一个人都还能够一起在坚持学习这些颂词。如果可以的话呢，当然是非常的好。因为就好像我们之前所说的，重点不是我们所讲文以及文字的速度，而是我们的质量。所以说，我们就算讲的慢一点的话，有一个非常坚固的一个基础的话，是非常重要的。这会是一段很长的时间，但是如果我们每一个人都能够认真的去学习、去闻思的话，肯定会给我们的人生带来很大的改变。因为整个这个佛子行37颂，它的重点都是讲如何去利他，所有的行持都是在讲我如何去帮助他人，这个是确定以及是唯一能够让我们证悟的方法。所以说如果我们能够坚持学习下去的话，当然是非常的好。
So anyway, to start today's teaching, it will be, of course, about the proper way to receive the Dharma. And to speak of that, first, it is we have three examples to speak of, which we will put on a pot or container. So there's three different kinds of containers. So first, we have to understand that there's three different containers, or pots. We could say pot. So the first pot is turned upside down. And the second pot has a hole in it. And then the third pot contains poison. So first, let's keep that in mind.
然后我们今天开始讲诵我们今天的课程的时候，当然我们还是先讲诵我们今天要说的文法方式。我们会通过3个例子来解释这个文法方式。我们可以想有3个法器，就是有3个容器。第一个是米腹器，就是一个倒扣的一个容器。第二个是一个漏器，就是有一个洞的一个法器。然后第3个是毒器，就是里面是有毒液的一个容器。
And so when we receive teachings from a spiritual teacher, when we receive the Dharma, whether it be from a spiritual teacher or a spiritual friend, when we listen to the Dharma, there's 3 faults or 3 problems that may arise, then are most likely to arise.
当我们从圣知识或者是道友那里得到佛法的时候，总体来说有可能会产生3种问题。
So the first fault or problem that may arise while listening to Dharma is not concentrating enough. Your mind is going everywhere while receiving the Dharma. You're not focusing enough. Your mind is thinking of some kind of delicious food or some relative or friend, or wanting to have some fun, or wanting to for the teaching to end quickly so you can do some other stuff, or you want or you're thinking of going to some place. Of course, because our mind is is like a monkey mind. It cannot sit still. It's natural for us to think of that, for our mind to be distracted and to go everywhere. So that is one fault that may arise.
第一个有可能会产生的问题就是我们在听闻佛法的时候不专注，我们会胡思乱想。比如说听闻佛法的时候，讲课的时候，我们可能会思考美食啊，或者是思考我们亲朋好友，或者希望这个课能够早一点结束，然后或者是说思考等一下要去哪里。我们的念头就像一个疯猴子一样，就会到处的乱跑，会思考很多的东西，没有能够专注在我们所听闻的佛法上面。
And of course, also what you can include is what would it be called? Drowsiness, I guess. Maybe you're feeling sleepy. So you're feeling very sleepy while receiving the teachings, and so those kind of faults may arise. And the problem, what the problem is, if there is that, is that while you're receiving teachings, if you have those kind of faults, then even if you're physically in front of the teacher, receiving the teachings, or even if it's not physically, if it's online like this, where you can see the guru on the screen or the teacher on the screen, even if it may be something like that, because your mind is not focused, your physical body is here, your mind is not here, your mind is going somewhere else, or it may be asleep, it is not active. Because of that, even if you're receiving, it looks like you're receiving the teachings, whatever the teacher is teaching you, whatever the teacher is teaching you, it is not going into your mind because you're not hearing it, you're not paying attention to the teaching.
或者还有一个问题就是我们有可能会昏沉，就是有可能我们在听闻佛法的时候会睡着。这样的问题的话，就是就算我们的人的这个身体是面对我们的善知识，就不管是亲自接触善知识，在善知识面前听法，还是比如说像我们现在这样是在网上听法的话，就算我们的身体在这里，但是我们的念头却在其他地方，或者是处于一个昏沉睡着的状态。就是所以说不管是我们的身体是在这里的话，但是我们的念头却不在这里，没有能够听闻佛法。
So that is similar to the pot that is upside down, the container that is upside down. A container, because it is a container, its very purpose is to put something in. It can be a liquid or it can be a solid food or anything. But because it is turned upside down, it is not serving its purpose, even if it has the potential to hold something in it. It cannot hold anything because it's turned upside down. Likewise, we have the potential to benefit from the Dharma if we listen to it attentively, but because we are not paying attention, we're sleepy, or we're thinking of something other than the Dharma, and we're not listening to the actual teaching. Even if we have the potential to benefit from the Dharma, we will not benefit from it because it's not entering our mind. So that is the first fault. It is the fault that is similar to the container that is turned upside down. So therefore, while we're receiving the Dharma teachings, it is important to not have that fault, and instead, in its place, we have to listen to the Dharma teaching very carefully and attentively.
所以说，这个就是我们前面所讲的第一种容器，就是一个负气，就是一个颠倒过来的一个容器。容器本身它的作用就是把东西放进去，就是它有这个能力，或者是它有这个功能，去承载一个东西。但是如果说这个容器是颠倒过来，是扣住的话，那就没有办法把东西装载进去。同样的，就算我们在听法的时候，但是心里却胡思乱想，就算是能够得到佛法的利益，也不能够得到，因为我们的心在胡思乱想，所以就是我们不能有这样子的一种过失。
And then the second fault that may arise while receiving the Dharma teachings is to actually, of course, listen to the Dharma teaching well, but you don't remember it. That kind of mind factor of remembering it is not present. So therefore, even if you may receive the teaching right now, you're actually listening to it quite well, but then after the teaching, you forget it because there's not that, because you didn't try to remember it. then there's also, it is pretty similar. There's not really much difference to having listened to it carefully in the beginning, because in the end you forgot it and it's no use of having received it in the first place. And that is similar to the pot or the container that has a hole in it. So if there's a container with a hole in it, it's not turned upside down, it's turned up, right? And you pour water or any liquid into it, it will fill, but it will slowly drain as well, because there's a hole in it, and the water will drain from the container eventually, if not immediately after having poured the water, after having filled the container. So likewise, you may hear all of the teachings right now, it feels good, but then after you leave this Zoom teaching, you forget all about it. Then there's that would be quite, you could say, a pity. So therefore, it's important to try to remember it. And of course, maybe not everyone's memory is excellent. So therefore, if it's best, of course, if you can remember it. But if you cannot remember it, it's of course most important to try to make the effort to remember it. But even if you cannot remember it, it's good to at least take notes, so you won't, even if you forget it, you can be reminded of the teaching. So therefore, it doesn't say to take notes in the it wasn't said by the past masters. They said while listening to the teachings, it's important to carefully listen and to remember the teaching. But from our own experience, we can say that it's also very good to take notes of the teachings while receiving it. So that is something that you should do.
第二种过失就是一个有漏之气有漏之气就是我们就算现在认真的听法的话，但是之后就记不得我们所听闻的佛法的这个意思。就比如说我们就是一节佛法的课讲完了之后，就忘记了所讲完的内容。这样子的话，就和我们上课的时候没有认真的或者是没有用心的去听法是一样的结果。一个有漏之气的话，就好像是一个容器，就算往里面注水，但是它暂时会盛满，但最终的话，所灌注的水都会慢慢的漏掉。就好像比如说。我们现在听课是很好，但是可能我们这个 Zoom 一结束，一下课了之后的话，有可能就全部都会忘掉。这样子的话，如果是这样子的情况的话，那就会非常的可惜。所以我们要努力记得我们上课讲过了什么。虽然不是每一个人的记忆力都是一样，但是我们一定要花功夫去记得我们所听闻的佛法。如果对我们有帮助的话，我们可以记笔记，来帮助我们记忆。虽然记录笔记不是之前或者是过去的传承上师们所说的，但是根据我们自己的经历的话，记笔记能够帮助我们的记忆。
And so it is important to make sure that fault that is similar to the pot that has a hole, container that has a hole, is not present while listening to the Dharma. The third fault that may occur is to have all of these defilements or bad thoughts while receiving the Dharma, instead of wholesome thoughts such as faith or the wish to receive the teachings and the like. Instead of that, you have pride or jealousy, and your mind is filled with anger or strong attachment to something while receiving the Dharma. Or it may be a wish you're receiving the Dharma in order to become a scholar, so in the end you will become famous and you can compete with your rivals and the like. Those kind of thoughts are not good to have while receiving the Dharma from the teacher. It is similar to the container that is filled with poison. The container filled with poison, what there is with that is that if there's a container filled with poison, then or filled with poison, or you could say a container filled with dirt, if you pour water in it, the water will get mixed with the dirt and it will become dirty water. Likewise, if you receive the Dharma from with such bad thoughts or bad intentions, then even if the Dharma is holy and you listen to it and it enters your mind, it will not serve its purpose because the way you received it was wrong. You could say the Dharma itself will end up turning into the medicine. The Dharma, which is the medicine itself, will end up turning into something sort of like poison.
前面就是讲我们这个漏气的话，就是我们要说我们要远离这种作为漏气的过患。然后第三种情况的话，就是这个毒气。如果这个毒气的情况的话，就是我们在听闻佛法的时候，比如说我们心里有傲慢心、嫉妒心、嗔恨心，或者有强烈的我执去听闻佛法，或者是说我们听闻这个佛法课的时候，我们的发心不对。比如说我们听闻这些课的之后，希望自己能够成为一个学者，得到很多人的尊敬。或者是说为了去和别人去竞争，就是以我们听闻这个佛法所学到的内容去和别人做竞争，这样子的话，我们就成为了一个毒气，或者是说，就是一个里面布满了灰尘的一个容器。这样子的话，比如说我们这样子的一个容器里面注水的话，这个水就会变得浑浊。同样的，如果我们听闻佛法的时候有了这样子的发心，就算听闻了非常殊胜的佛法的话，也不会有对应的作用。佛法就是就像解药一样，但是我们如果有这样子的发心，佛法就会变成毒药。
So if you receive the Dharma in such a way, then whatever you do if it be while receiving the teachings or after you have received the teachings, it is most likely that it will all end up as bad deeds, unwholesome deeds. You end up creating bad karma for yourself. The intention was bad while receiving the Dharma because the intention was bad. And then also after you receive the Dharma, the way you're going to use that information that you have just received from the teacher, you'll use it for the wrong purposes. You're going to use it, you might end up using it to show to others that you know better than them. It may be you may use that knowledge that you've received to write a book, a Dharma book, which in the end is meant to you might use it for some people, of course, there are many people who do that. They write a book, some scholars write a book, and the main purpose of the book, they write a Dharma book, but the main purpose of writing the book is not really so the book can help others, but it is so they can receive a lot of money because they stick a very high price with the book. So you're not using the Dharma in the right way. So therefore, when receiving the teachings, the proper way to receive it is without those bad intentions. It should be with the thought of striving for liberation. If it's Hinayana, of course it should be. If you're a Hinayana practitioner, it would be a liberation for oneself without any attachment to the purposes or the needs of this life alone. And of course, for us Mahayanas, it's very important that whatever we do, whether it be receiving the teachings or any action, and in this case, since we're talking about receiving the teachings, it should be, we should receive the teachings with the wish that by receiving this teaching from the teacher, it will serve as a cause for myself to be able to help others in the end.
我们如果这样听法的话，那我们在听课之后的话，都会因为我们在听课的时候的发心不对，都会也就是说我们的发心不对，这也就是我们以一个恶因去听课的话，那之后我们听完佛法之后，我们所用到这个听佛法的这些学习的内容，它为我们或者说我们用法的这个目的也就不对。就比如说我们听了佛法之后，我们为了去证明自己，去和别人说我们所听闻的佛法，或者是说我们去写一本书，但是这个写书的目的不是为了去利他，比如说有可能是为了赚钱也比如说我们写了这本书去卖一个很高的价格等等。所以我们听法的时候一定要远离这一些恶因。如果是也一定要远离这些恶因，而从真正利他的角度出发去听闻佛法。如果是小乘佛法的修行人的话，那听法的目的就是希望我们能够自己从轮回当中摆脱的这样的一个动力去听佛。 听法。如果是像我们大乘佛法修行的话，那我们的任何的行持，不管是听闻佛法的课，都是要以利他的心出发，希望以我们每一次听课的功德，都能够成为未来为度化一切众生而成佛的因。
So therefore, when receiving the teachings from the teacher, it's important to have good thoughts and receive it out of reverence with great respect to the teacher and the Dharma, both to the teacher and Dharma.
所以我们听法的时候一定要发善愿，而且的话一定要尊重我们得受佛法的圣知识以及佛法本身。
So that is one way to understand it. There's also other ways to explain the kind of faults that arise while receiving the teachings. We usually also speak of 6 stains. So 6 stains that may occur while receiving the teachings.
这当然是其中的一个解释我们听闻佛法的时候要远离的一些过患。其他的话，我们还可以从六垢的角度来解释我们要远离的一些听闻佛法的一些不如法的行为。
The 6 stains is the first is pride, so listening out of pride with a prideful attitude. That is the first stain. The second stain is listening without faith. That is the second stain. The third stain is to not really yearn for the teaching, to not when we receive the teachings, some people don't really some people of course really yearn for the teaching. I guess you would say they really want to receive the teaching, but some people, they're just like, if I receive the teaching, that's okay. If I don't receive it, that's also okay. So it shouldn't be like that. There should be a thought where you really want it, you really want to get that Dharma teaching. So if you don't have that, that is a stain. So that is the third stain.
接下来我们要讲的远离的六垢里面的前面3个，就是第一个就是有傲慢心，第二个就是没有正信，第三个就是不希求佛法。不希求佛法就是听闻佛法的时候，觉得这一些听闻的内容都是可有可无的，我听也可以，不听也可以，这样的一种心态去听法。
And then the fourth stain is a distracted mind. As I mentioned earlier, that can be counted as the fourth stain. The fifth stain is listening too attentively, I guess you could say. Too attentively is not good. Attentively is good, but too attentively is not good. So that can also become a stain. And then the sixth stain is to listen with sort of like a sadness.
然后接下来的3个就是，第一个是外散，就是我们然后接下来一个就是内收，内收就是我们前面讲的，比如说昏沉或者是听佛法的时候昏昏欲睡，然后最后一个就是疲厌。
So to speak of each of these 6 stains, the first, as I mentioned, is a prideful attitude. So to give you a better understanding of what that means and how we might possibly have it is, it means that when you receive the teaching, some people will compare themselves with the teacher, thinking that my family and that. So the teacher is giving you the teaching meanwhile, but you're not listening, of course, and you're starting to think of a bunch of stuff. And now in this case, because you have pride in your mind, you're thinking, compared to the teacher's family, my family is doing better. I'm more wealthy. We're doing better financially. So I'm doing much better than that teacher. And then also one may think that the teacher is quite young. I'm quite old. I surely know more Dharma than the teacher. I'm more experienced. So such thoughts are a prideful attitude.
比如说第一个是我们要远离的就是傲慢心，就比如说我们在听课的时候，面对善知识的时候，虽然我们是在听课，但是我们可能心里会胡思乱想， 比如说，我们会想，我们比圣知识的家庭，背景更殷实啊，或者是比圣知识的家庭更有钱等等，或者是说圣知识很年轻的话，我们如果比圣知识要年长的话，可能会想我比他懂的佛法要更多，或者是说我在其他方面，比他更有经验，懂得的更多。
So if you receive the Dharma teachings with a prideful attitude, then it will serve as an obstacle to receiving the Dharma.
所以说，如果我们以这样的发心去听闻佛法的话，那听闻的佛法反而会成为我们的障碍。
Then the second fault is not having faith. Not having faith is the second stain. So while receiving the teachings, you're examining the teacher then, and you see that you kind of see, even if there may or may not be actual faults in the teacher, you're noticing these faults in the teacher. You start to find faults in the teacher while receiving the Dharma, and so that will also so basically you do not have reverence towards the teacher, and so you will not be able to receive the Dharma properly.
第二个要远离的就是无正性，就是不管上师或者甚至是有没有过患的话，我们都会在上知识上挑毛病，找到他的过患，或者是说我们都没有对上知识有恭敬心。
So while receiving the Dharma from the teacher, I think it is very important to not really, that is, I mean, of course we say it is important to examine the teacher, the nature of the teacher, but that is not really the right time to examine the teacher. The right time to examine the teacher is before you receive the teachings, before you accept the teacher. That is the right time to to examine the teacher. But while you're actually receiving the teachings, it is important to focus upon the teachings and to listen with great respect to the teacher. So therefore, it is important to not examine, because if you examine, because we are sentient beings, and it's natural for some bad thoughts to suddenly arise, it's natural that we will find fault in the teacher. And then if we find fault in the teacher, then of course, bad thoughts will, more and more bad thoughts will pop up, arise, thinking that the teacher is teaching the Dharma in the wrong way, or the teacher's teaching fake Dharma, the teacher is a fake teacher, a fake Dharma teacher, that such thoughts will occur. So that will serve as an obstacle to receiving the Dharma.
还有就是我们听法的时候，更重要的就是在听法的时候不要观察上师。当然说我们总是强调要观察上师，但是观察上师的话，应该是我们在听闻或者是接受这个甚至是之前所做的。真正听法的时候，我们就要专注我们所听闻的佛法，要尊重我们的善知识。因为我们是凡夫，所以有各种各样的分别念是非常正常的。但是我们如果在听了佛法的时候，有很多恶的分别念产生的话，那就会这些恶念就会停止不下来，会有更多的恶念产生，会认为这个善知识是假的善知识，在传授假的佛法，这样子的话就会给我们听闻的佛法当中产生种种的违缘。
And then the third fault is to not really yearn for the Dharma. So you're not, so when you're receiving the Dharma, it is like, if I receive it, if I receive the Dharma today, that's okay. If I don't receive it, that's also fine. I could receive it any time, or I don't really need it that badly. So if you receive it in such a way, that also becomes an obstacle to the Dharma. The way we should be receiving the teaching is by really yearning for the Dharma, by thinking that I really need this teaching really badly. And if I don't receive this teaching, if I'm not able to receive this teaching, it won't work out for me at all. I really need this teaching to help me move on. So with my Dharma practice and my progress. So with such a mindset, you need to receive the teachings.
第三个 六过当中第3个的过患就是不希求佛法。就比如说我们知道有佛法课要能够听闻的话，我们会想我今天听不听这个课都无所谓，我没有那么需要去马上听闻这个佛法的课。我们应该要想的是，我们非常需要听闻这个佛法的课，我们不得不要得受这些教法，然后从而让我们的修行有进步。
And the fourth stain is the distracted mind. So what that means is that while listening to the Dharma, you're looking around. You're not, of course, if you look at your notebook and if you're taking notes, that's fine. Or if you're best is if you're also looking at the teacher or textbook. But other than that, like if you're looking at something that is not really related to the teaching or what is going on presently, if you're looking at your pet, maybe if you have a pet, it can be a pet or it can be just a non-animate object like a table or your phone. It can be your phone. If you notice some notifications or messages coming in, if you check those, if you hear some kind of sound, and then that means your mind is distracted. And so it's important to just, when receiving the Dharma teachings, it's important to look at the teacher and also at the same time take notes if you can. And that is with your eyes. That is what your eyes should be doing. And as for your ears, it should be listening to the Dharma. Other than that, if you look at some other object, whatever the eye sees, the mind will follow that. Whatever object appears to the eye consciousness, whatever object appears to the eye consciousness, the mind will follow that. And if it follows that, it means it just left the teaching of what's going on right now. And likewise, if whatever you hear, if you follow, so you hear some kind of fireworks going on, or some messages, notifications coming in, if you listen to those, of course you hear it, but if you really just follow that and pay attention to that more than the teaching, then it means your mind has gone on there as well, which means, of course, that your mind is not here receiving the teachings. So and so that way, that becomes the obstacle to receiving the Dharma. So you need to really use both your eyes and your ears focused on the Dharma.
第4个过患就是外散。就比如说我们听了佛法的时候，眼睛到处乱看。当然我们如果是在记笔记的话，那没有关系。最好的话是能够看着我们的圣知识或者看着我们的课本。如果说我们外散的话，就有可能我们听课的时候会去看着我们的宠物，或者是看着一个物体，比如说我们的桌子啊，或者是我们的手机。比如说突然看到手机上来了一条消息，或者是听到一个声音的时候，我们有去关注那个声音从哪里来。这样子的话，我们的心就散乱了。我们要做到的是要看着上师，如果有可能的话要记笔记。听完佛法的时候要做到眼睛看耳朵听。因为不管我们眼睛看到什么的话，我们的意识马上就会跟随过去。那我们一旦意识跟随过去了的话，我们的心识就离开了我们所听闻的佛法。就比如说我们听到外面有烟花的声音，或者听到有手机传来消息的声音的话，那我们的意识肯定就会跟随过去。这样子的话，我们就不能专注在我们要听闻的佛法上面。这样子的话，就会对我们听闻佛法产生障碍。所以要用眼睛看上师，或者是看我们的课本，然后用耳朵去专注的听。
Of course, if you're using your phone or device for a Dharma purpose, like taking notes, if you don't have a notebook with you, you need to type it down, then of course that is okay. But if you're just going to use it for any other purpose in the Dharma, then that will become a distraction. So it is something good to avoid.
当然，如果我们用手机是为了帮我们记笔记，比如说我们没有纸可以记笔记的话，那当然可以用。但是如果是我们用手机是用来作为其他的途径的话，那肯定会让我们不专注在听法上面。
The 5th stain is for your mind to be, I don't know exactly how to say that in English, but kind of like focused inside too much, or it could be like shutting down in a way. So for example, if you're while receiving the teachings, some people I think like to just meditate. They close their eyes and put their hands in the samadhi kind of mudra, and they actually meditate while receiving the teachings. That is not really the time to meditate. You can do your meditations any other time. While listening to the Dharma teachings, it will say later that you need to have your eyes, open and like be really aware of what the teacher is saying, and also, if possible, put your hands together or your palms together like this while receiving the teachings. If you cannot do that, that's also okay, but it is recommended. But some people just close their eyes and do meditation while the teacher is teaching, so that is not really, it doesn't really have a connection with what's going on, and that can also become an obstacle to receiving the Dharma, and also falling asleep or dozing off, I guess you'd say, dozing off, and those are kind of like your mind shutting down, so you should avoid those. That is the fifth fault, the fifth stain.
第五个过患就是内收，或者是说我们太专注于内在，就比如说有些人听我佛法课的时候喜欢眼睛闭着做禅坐式这样听课，但其实这个不是我们听课的时候不是我们做禅坐或者是让我们去打坐的时候，我们应该要把眼睛睁开，认真的听课，然后如果有可能的话要双手合十，如果有些人他们如果是眼睛闭着的话，那就不能够接受我们就不能够如法的接受到我们听闻的佛法，就会导致我们昏昏欲睡。
And then the sixth, the last stain, is sadness. So what that means is that while receiving the teachings, sometimes the teaching may end up being too long. The session is too long, and then you get bored or you feel sad, and you wish that it would end sooner. And that will end up as an obstacle to receiving Dharma properly. And also sometimes there comes a sadness because even if you are trying to receive the teachings attentively, carefully, you do not understand the teaching, and because of that, you think how the teaching is very holy, but how pitiful it is that I am not able to understand it, and then you get discouraged and the like. So that can also become an obstacle to receiving the Dharma properly.
最后一个就是疲厌，就是我们听课的时候，有些时候觉得这个课太长了，然后觉得非常的无聊，或者觉得非常的厌烦，希望能够早一点结束。或者有些时候我们的厌烦心是因为我们自己可能不能完全理解我们所听闻的佛法，也就是说传说的佛法是非常的殊胜，但是因为我们自己的对佛法的不理解，会觉得非常的遗憾，或感觉对自己感觉非常的无力，觉得自己不能够理解这个佛法而产生的疲厌心。
When such thoughts of regret, I guess you would say, come in your mind, when it pops up in your mind, you should think about the difficulties that Shakyamuni Buddha went through to receive the Dharma teachings himself, all of the difficulties he went through in his past lives, of course, and even right before he attained enlightenment. In many of his past lives, he just to receive a four-line verse teaching of the Dharma, he was willing, and he actually did poke hundreds and thousands of holes in his body, and light butter lamps, small butter lamps in each of those pores or holes, as an offering to receive the Dharma or to purify his bad deeds that were obstructing him from receiving the Dharma. So he went to many great difficulties just to receive like a verse of the Dharma, of the precious Dharma. And so as for us, we do not need to go to such difficulties. The Dharma is available in its entirety, complete the 84,000 teachings the Buddha has, all of the vast teachings, it's all available for us. And so we do not need to go through such difficulties. And so we should think of ourselves as being very fortunate that the Dharma is right in front of us, and we should take whatever kind of chances that we can get, that we have while we have it, to get as much Dharma as we can.
如果我们上课觉得非常的疲厌的话，那我们心里就要经常在想，师尊以前为了得法，所做出的一切牺牲，作为对峙。比如说，释迦牟尼佛以前在因地为了得法的时候，为了得到四句正法，也不惜在自己的肉身上挖了1000个洞，为了能够插入灯芯点灯，为了点千灯而做供养，为了能够清净自己的罪业而得到四句正法。虽然我们现在不用这样的苦行，但是现在84000法门都已经在我们面前都是唾手可得，所以我们应该要想我们自己非常的幸运，能够这么轻易的能够得到佛法，所以我们一定要抓住一切机会，珍惜我们所得到的佛法。
And then, of course, as I mentioned, sometimes we may think that because I do not understand the Dharma teaching, what the teacher is saying, it's probably not worth receiving the teachings. I'm not able to understand it anyway. So if such thoughts arise, you should not think of, you should understand that you should not be thinking of such thoughts, because even if you do not understand the Dharma, if you do not understand the meaning of the Dharma, just by hearing it, it is said that there's great benefit.
有的时候我们听了佛法的时候，就会觉得，可能因为我们不能理解里面深深的含义，就会觉得可能这个佛法对我来说没有用。但是我们不能这么想，就算我们不能够完全的了解的话，光是听到这个佛法，对我们也是有很大的价值，也是有很大的用处。
There are some examples to illustrate that. For example, in the past there was a monk in India called Upakute. So his name is Upakute. And this monk was reciting the Dharma, some verses of the Dharma, and a dog was nearby. And the dog, being an animal, would not understand the meaning of the Dharma, but it heard the monk reciting the verses of the Dharma. Just because it heard the monk reciting some verses, after the dog died, it was reborn as a god in one of the heavenly realms of the desire realm, one of the heavens of the desire realm.
举一个例子来说，以前在印度有一个僧人叫 Upakute， 他在念诵佛法的时候，或者念诵经文的时候，他身边有一只小狗。虽然这个小狗它不懂佛法，但是光是听到这个僧众的念诵，它死后就转生到了欲界天，成为了天人。
And then also there's another story. There was once a monk, another monk, and he would, right outside of his hut, there was a bird's nest. And there was a bird living in that nest. And every morning, the monk would recite some prayers. He would recite a sutra, a particular sutra. And the bird would hear that because it's living right next to the monk. The bird would be woken up by the sound of the monk reciting the sutra. And due to that, after the bird died, the bird was reborn as a human. And just because, of course, it did not understand the meaning of what the monk was reciting, but just because it heard it, it was reborn as a human in its next life. And right after it was born, the bird was reborn, naturally endowed with faith in the three jewels. And sometime in the later part of that rebirth's life, that person became a monk, became ordained, and later on, when that person heard the same sutra being recited by someone else, that person was able to memorize it immediately without having to, put
great effort into memorizing it because it had heard the sutra being recited in its past life. So therefore, there are many great benefits just by hearing the Dharma. So you do not need to be discouraged if you do not understand the Dharma now.
另外一个举例来说，过去也是有一个僧人，他住的草屋外有一个鸟巢。这个僧人他每天早上都会念诵一些经文，这个鸟听到了之后，虽然这个鸟它当然不懂这些念诵的经文，但就以这个僧人念诵经文的这个功德，这个鸟死后就转世成了人道。虽然他当时不能理解这些经文，但是他转了人道之后，羽生就对正法具有了信心，之后也受戒出家。再后来，他在听到了这个同样的这个偈颂的时候，他不用花很多的功夫，就一下子能够记得这些偈颂。所以说，我们现在就算不能够完全理解这些深深的佛法的话，光是听闻也是有很大的功德。
And then one time during the time of the Buddha himself, there was a great gathering, a Dharma teaching gathering, and there was an old person with this old person holding a walking stick, and that person could not see very clearly because of his old age, and that person was reciting some Dharma verses, I believe, and then so actually, yes, it was like this. That person was at the Dharma gathering, and the teacher was teaching the Dharma. The old person was present, but because the old person could not see clearly, the old person accidentally squashed a frog that was on the ground at that moment. There was a frog on the ground at the Dharma gathering, and that person squashed the frog with his walking stick, and killed the frog. But before the frog died, the frog had heard some of the sound of the Dharma being taught at the Dharma gathering. So because of that, after the frog died, it is said that the frog was reborn in the heaven of the 33.
还有一个公案就是佛陀在世的时候，有一次在举行一场法会的时候，当时有一位善知识在讲授佛法。当时有一个年纪非常大的人，他因为眼睛看不清，他拄着拐杖从这个法会当中走过。因为他眼睛看不清，他的拐杖不当心碾压死了当时在场的一个青蛙。当时这个青蛙因为他在这个法会的现场。但在他死之前，因为他听说到了一些这个善知识所传授的佛法，他死后就以此善根转世到33天。
And after that frog was reborn in the heaven, because it was now reborn as a god, it was born with cleverance. He was born with cleverance and could see his past life. He examined his own past life. He looked, he checked, inspected, and thought to himself, how did I get here? What was the karma that brought me here, that helped me be reborn as a god? And when he checked, he saw to his past of what had happened. And after he saw that, he arranged a lot of offerings of flowers and with a host of other gods. That God descended down to earth and visited the Buddha and made great offerings to the Buddha. And then it was at that time that the Buddha said a verse, a very famous verse, such as that all compounded phenomena are the nature of impermanence, and the verse that ends with only nirvana is peace. And so the Buddha said that verse, and due to that, immediately the God directly perceived the truth. So from this example, we can understand that even if you do not understand the meaning of the Dharma now, if you still listen to the Dharma, eventually, even if it is possible to be benefited in this very life, but even if you're not benefited in this life, you'll certainly, without a doubt, be benefited in a future life.
但是这个青蛙，它在转世到了天人之后，因为它具有了神通，它就看自己的过去世，以何因转世于此。 在看到他前世是一个青蛙，然后因为之前的我们讲的那个公案的那个原因，他转世到了天人之后，他就和其他的天人准备了许许多多的供养回到人间来拜见世尊，来供养世尊。当时释迦牟尼佛对这个天人就说了一个非常有名的偈颂，就是诸行无常，寂寂涅槃。也就因为听闻这个偈颂的原因，这个天人后来就得到了很大的加持，然后也就在修行上有很大的成就。所以也就是说，我们现在的话，听完佛法，就算我们不能够完全理解所讲文的内容的话，在我们的今生和来世都会非常大的利益。
So you do not need to be discouraged if you cannot understand the meaning immediately. It is probably impossible for most people, the majority of people, to understand the Dharma the very first time they receive the Dharma. What's most important is that you continually receive the Dharma from the teacher. You continually need to hear the Dharma again and again. And then if you listen, the more you listen, the understanding will slowly follow. The understanding will slowly follow. So that is what we need to keep in mind.
所以说我们在听佛法的时候，也不用因为暂时不能理解这些佛法所教授的内容而感到气馁。几乎我们所有的修行人都不是在第一次听了佛法的时候都能够马上理解这些内容，但是我们要坚持我们听得越多，以后对佛法的理解也就会慢慢的更加的深入。
The benefits of listening to the Dharma is taught in the sutras such as that. By listening to the Dharma, we will gain understanding of many fields of knowledge. By listening to the Dharma, we will be able to abandon negative deeds, bad karma, bad deeds. By listening to the Dharma, we will be able to abandon wrong understanding or wrong views. And by listening to the Dharma, we will in the end be able to attain liberation. So those are the benefits of listening to the Dharma.
听法的利益就好像在经中所说，我们因为听法能够使我们远离恶因，因为听法能够使我们远离邪见，因为听法最终能够让我们获得解脱。
And then there are also some faults while receiving the Dharma, such as you put great emphasis on the words, but you don't put emphasis on the meaning. So if you receive the teachings like that, then you may remember the words, what the teacher said, but you do not know what the teacher meant by that, because you do not really try to figure out what he meant by that when he said those words. So you only have the empty words with no meaning with you. And then some put emphasis on just the meaning, but undervalue, I guess you would say, the words. So if you do that, then knowing the meaning is good, but because you do not know the words, you will not be able to share the Dharma with others, because you do not know how to pass it on to others. You do not put emphasis on the words. You only know the meaning. So that is also a fault.
还有两种过患，就是第一个是持文不持义，就是我们在听了佛法的时候，我们只把我们的专注力集中在我们所听闻的这个佛法的句意，这个词句本身，也就是说我们能够理解这些词，但是我们就不能领会它的意思。这样子的话，这个我们只不过是得到了一个空的一个外壳，只得到这个词句而已，不会得到其中的利益。还有一个就是持义不持文，也就是说我们在听了佛法的时候，我们去轻视了它的词义，这样子的话，那我们就没有办法去和别人传授我们所学到的佛法。
So it's important to put emphasis to focus on both the words and the meaning of the teaching. If you just put emphasis on the words and not on the meaning, then even a parrot can do that. The parrot can say a lot of words without knowing what they're talking about. So you're no better than a parrot if you do that. So it's important to not just put emphasis on the words. And of course, I mentioned just the meaning itself, then you will not, if you put emphasis just on the meaning, you won't be able to share the Dharma with others. Is because we are supposed to be training to be bodhisattvas. We might think that it's okay if I know the meaning. Do I really need to know the words? That is the work of the teachers. It's the gurus or the lamas or the rinpoches or the teachers' work, or the monks, the sanghas' work to teach the Dharma to others. I'm just a simple layperson. Why do I really need to put much? Do I really need to pay attention to the words that much? Wouldn't it be okay if I just understand the meaning? But because we are training to be bodhisattvas, one of the works of the bodhisattvas is to benefit. The main, of course, work of bodhisattvas is to benefit others. There are many ways to benefit others, such as to giving material objects and the like. But the best way to benefit others is by sharing the Dharma. And to do that, you need to teach Dharma, you need to speak the Dharma, you need to use words. So therefore, knowing the words is also important. So you need to keep that in mind.
所以说，我们不管是词还是这个意，我们都要去行持。就是说，我们不能够只是把我们的专注力集中在这个词句上面，而去不理会它的意义。这样子的话，就像鹦鹉学舌一样，我们只不过是不停地重复这个词句本身，但是真正的意义却不能理解。同样的，我们也不能只把我们的专注力放在这个词句的意义上面。这样子的话，我们就没有办法把这个佛法的本身传授给别人。虽然我们有可能会想传授佛法是善知识上师们所做的工作，但是因为我们都是为了要度化一切众生，要成菩萨而去学习这些佛法。这样子的话，我们如果只不过是自己懂了，但是却不知道这些词句的话，也就没有办法给别人传授。所以最好的方法就是我们自己在领受了这些词义之后，又能够在知道这些词句，能够记住这些词句的基础上去把这些分享给其他的人。
Another fault that may arise while listening to the Dharma is not understanding the intended purpose, intended meaning of the words of the Dharma. So if we do not know the intended meaning of the Dharma, then it is difficult for us to be able to help others when teaching the Dharma.
然后接下来的一个过患就是指为领会而行持，也就是说我们在不知道这个教法它要想表达的意思是什么的时候去行持，这样子的话我们学了之后也没有办法去把这个传授给别人，去帮助别人。
For example, there's a story of King Ajatasattu of Magadha. So maybe you might have heard of it if you've read of it before, that the king of Magadha, King Bimbisara, was assassinated by his own son, King Ajatasattu. So after that happened, King Ajatasattu became very regretful of his actions, and he went to visit the Buddha. And when he went to visit the Buddha, he informed, of course, the Buddha of his. He was very regretful, very, very regretful. He was feeling so bad and so desperate, I guess you would say, that when he informed the Buddha, he wanted to hear some comforting words. He was hoping to hear from the Buddha something like, what you did is not too bad. Because if the Buddha said, oh, what you did is so bad, now you're going straight to hell because you killed your father, then that would, he would feel even more devastated. So he had hopes to hear something comforting, sort of comforting. So when he went to see the Buddha, he informed the Buddha, and the Buddha said, the father and mother are meant to be killed. The father and mother should be killed. That's what the Buddha said. So that helped him ease his mind a bit. So when we hear the Buddha say that, it says in the textbooks, the Buddha said that the father and mother should be killed. The Buddha did not mean it literally. He used that phrase, I guess you would say, at that moment, at that time, to comfort Ajatasattu. The intended meaning of that, when he said father and mother are to be killed, what he meant by that is that karma and defilements are to be abandoned. That is what he meant. So when he said father and mother, he meant karma and defilements. And when he said father and mother are meant to be killed, he meant karma and defilements are meant to be abandoned. So it's a whole different intended meaning of what he said. But if we do not understand that and take it the wrong way, then we will not be able to appreciate the Buddha's teachings, because we do not grasp the true intended meaning.
举例来说，之前有一个阿楚世王的公案，他在杀死了他自己的亲生父亲之后，他感到非常非常的忏悔，然后他当时就希望能够去从师尊那里得到一些教法，希望师尊能够讲一些能够安慰他的话，让他觉得他的行为罪业不是那么大，让他心里好过一点。当时师尊和他说，父亲和母亲应该被杀。但是其实这个不是释迦牟尼佛他真正想表达的意思。师尊真正想表达的意思是我们应该舍弃我们的业力和舍弃我们自己我们的各种的过患，而不是说表面上的师尊所表达的父母应该被杀的意思。
Then one of the fourth faults that may occur is to take it the wrong way. So that, for example, the teacher is teaching the Dharma very honestly, without any mistakes. But then because the listener is trying to find fault in the teacher's teaching, it's funny, because if you try to find fault, it's most likely that you will find a fault, because you're searching for something, and in your view, because we have defilements as sentient beings, it's natural that we will find a fault on the outside. So we may find a fault in the teacher's teaching, even if the teacher's teaching it correctly, and then we will end up criticizing the teacher and say the teacher said this, it doesn't say that in the scriptures, and you just take it the wrong way. You take what the teacher said in the wrong way, with the wrong understanding. So that will not help you in while receiving the Dharma from the teacher.
接下来一个就是上下错谬而行之，就是我们要远离的一种过患，也就是我们在听闻佛法的时候，我们心里却在给善知识纠错，但是其实很有意思的是，我们如果是带着一种去纠错的心去听闻佛法的话，或者是去做任何事情的话，那一定会找到其中的过患或者其中的错误。那这样子的话，就算上师说的是正法，但是我们抱有一种去纠错的心去听的话，那这个正法也不会利益到我们，我们也能够找到这个正法当中的种种过患。
And then the fifth one is not listening enough, not hearing enough. I guess you would say not grasping enough of the Dharma. So what that means is that while receiving the Dharma, you grasp the most important stuff, but you grasp the most important points, but you undervalue the lesser kind of points. So you do not respect the lesser points that much, and you think that those are not that important. Maybe I don't need it. I don't need to pay much attention to that. While receiving the Dharma, every word of the Dharma is precious and has its own value, and we need to respect all of that and while receiving the Dharma.
第五个就是颠倒行持，也就是说我们只把我们的注意力放在我们认为就是重要的一些或者是最主要的一些部分，一些细微的一些细节，或者是一些看起来不那么重要的部分，我们觉得它不重要，就没有去把心思花在这个上面。但其实佛法里面的每一字每一句都是非常的珍贵和重要。
And then while receiving the Dharma, we should get rid of all of those faults that I mentioned earlier, the 3 parts, that kind of fault, and then the 6 stains, and then the 5 just mentioned faults. And having abandoned all of that, it is important to listen to the Dharma, not just attentively, but with faith.
以上我们就是讲了我们要远离的6垢以及5种不行持。不仅是远离了这一些的话，我们在听完佛法的时候，要有强烈的信心。
There are 4 different kinds of faith. The first is clear faith. So that is like, it's basically kind of like joy. So while we're receiving the Dharma, we need to have joy. Our minds need to be very clear and not cloudy. I guess you would say not sleepy, but very clear and very joyful in the Dharma teaching. And if you're receiving the Dharma with a lot of Dharma friends, you need to be very joyful while receiving the Dharma.
信心也分有4种，第一个就是亲近心，也就是我们听佛法的时候有强烈的欢喜心以及亲近心去听，不管是我们自己去听闻，还是和道友一起听闻。
The kind of joy that we need is something similar to when we see someone that we are attached to, or some person that we are attached to, such as our parents, our friends, our loved one. For example, if we haven't seen them for a long time and we suddenly see them, there's that sudden joy that just emerges. So that kind of something similar to that excitement while receiving the Dharma, we kind of need that.
我们所听的佛法的时候，应该有的欢喜心，就像我们看到我们心里有所执着的人一样，比如说我们的家人啊、朋友，或者是我们的恋人，我们看到他们的时候，就是突然产生的那种强烈的欢喜心，也就是我们在听到佛法的时候应该所有的那种欢喜心。
The second faith is the yearning kind of faith. The faith of yearning, I guess you would say, and that means that you understand the faults of samsara, you understand the process of birth and death, and you are afraid of that process. And to escape from that process, you rely and you wish to attain the teacher and the teacher that teaches the Dharma for yourself, and also the Dharma teaching itself. You wish to attain that. For example, the kind of wish we need is like a person that is thirsty, a person that has not drinking water for a long time. That person, when such a person suddenly finds some water, when that thirsty person finds water to drink, we need the kind of the yearning for water like that thirsty person. That thirsty person will very much wants water very badly and will do anything to get the water. So something like that. When we receive the Dharma, we need to really want the Dharma and to try anything that we can do to get it.
第二种信心也就是娱乐心，也就是说我们在听完佛法的时候，有一种强烈的想要依止佛法，或者是依靠佛法的教授，能够让我们摆脱轮回的痛苦等等。这种强烈的娱乐心，或者这种对佛法强烈的希求心，就好像一个非常口渴的人在终于找到了水源，非常想去喝这一口水的那种强烈的欲望。我们在听闻佛法的时候，也应该有如此的娱乐心去听闻佛法。
The third kind of faith is the trustful faith, I guess you'd say. So that means that, for example, when you meet the teacher, the teacher that teaches that is present, just like when the mother and the child meet, there's this trust. So something similar to that.
第三种的话，也就是圣洁性，也就是说我们对善知识有非常强烈的信心，就好像我们在就好像母亲和她自己的小孩遇到的时候，小孩奔向他的母亲的时候，用所带有的这种强烈的信心。
The last and the fourth faith is the irreversible faith. So that is something like, it means that when you're doing the listening, the process of listening, contemplation and meditation, no matter what obscurations occur, such as sicknesses and illnesses of physical pains and the like, whatever occurs, nothing can stop you from doing your practices. That is called irreversible faith. It is something similar to nothing can stop the elephant from entering into the pond, because elephants like to enter ponds a lot, and nothing can stop them. So something similar to that.
第四种也就是不退转性，也就是我们在听了佛法闻思修，不管是什么样的一些行持的话，没有什么能够阻碍我们寻求佛法的心，也就像我们没有办法阻止大象奔向水池一样，对不起，奔向水塘一样，因为大象非常的喜欢在水塘里嬉戏，我们不退转性，也就是我们对佛法有这样子的一种希求心，有这样的一种不退转的信心。
So it is said that if you have faith, and even if you don't have wisdom right now, if you have faith, at least you will not end up giving up the Dharma, because you have faith. That will help you to hold on to the Dharma, even if you do not understand it currently.
这样说的话，就算我们现在没有智慧，但是我们有信心的话，也会让我们在学佛的道路上不退转。因为就算现在暂时还没有智慧的话，依靠我们这样的信心，也会让我们的行持一直坚持下去。
It is said also in the sutra that the faith is in the beginning is like the mother. It also is the very foundation for all of the good qualities to. It's like the field, I guess you would say, or the good foundation for all of the good qualities to be born or arise. It also helps to dispel doubts and frees one from the sufferings of samsara, and it delivers you. In the end, if you have faith, it delivers you to the kingdom of happiness.
就好像经中所说的，信心就像母亲一样，是我们一切生善法的基础。信心也就是能够帮助我们断除一切恶因的一个基础，也是能让我们断除一切轮回的苦。信心也能够最终让我们获得清净的正。
It also says that faith is like the hand. The purpose of the hand is to, or the hand is useful for is to grab things. The hand is useful for grabbing or picking up things. Likewise, the purpose of what the faith is useful for is it grabs or picks up the good qualities. It picks up and it gathers all of the different qualities from anywhere. A hand can pick up any object from any direction. Likewise, faith can pick up any kind of good quality among the many good qualities. It can pick up all of them.
信心也就像手一样，我们的双手可以去抓很多的东西。同样的，我们如果对佛法有信心的话，那也就是可以从佛法当中抓取，或者是说得到他所有的一些功德。
So therefore, it's very important. It is said that if you have faith, naturally all of the other good deeds, you end up performing good deeds. If you don't have faith, you'll end up performing bad deeds. If you have faith, the good deeds will multiply. If you don't have faith, bad deeds will multiply.
如果我们有信心的话，也就会使我们行善；如果没有信心的话，就会让我们行恶。同样，如果有信心的话，我们的善根也就会增长，也会增上；如果没有信心的话，那我们的恶因也会增上。
Now, if faith is so important and we need it, then how do we get faith? How can faith be born in our minds? So that question pops up. So to answer that, it is said that there are several causes for faith to arise in our mind, and particularly 4 causes.
如果现在这个问题就是，如果说信心这么重要的话，那我们如何得到这样的信心？也就是有4种让我们得到这样信心的因缘。
So the causes for faith to arise in our mind is to connect with the teacher, with the Dharma teacher, with good spiritual friends and the Dharma teacher. That is one of the causes for faith to be born in our minds. Another cause is to meditate upon impermanence. If you meditate on impermanence, you understand the the situation of samsara, which is of change, and then you will naturally want to escape from that. And you understand that the means to escape from that is the path that is taught by the Buddha, and you will develop faith in the Buddha Dharma like that, trust or faith. So that is another way, another cause for faith to be born, which is to meditate upon, to contemplate upon impermanence. Another is by contemplating on the law of cause and effect.
那我们要升起这样信心的话的这种4因里面，第一个就是要一直善知识以及要和善的道友一起修行。然后第二个就是要经常思考无常，也就是轮回的本质。我们多思考了轮回的本质无常的话，也就会发现我们希望能够摆脱这样子的轮回，然后也只有佛法才可以让我们真正做到这一点。第三个就是要经常思考因果。
And so therefore, it is important to have that. And also another of the causes is to recite the sutras. If you recite the sutras, because in the sutras, there are, of course, the words itself carry greater blessings and also has a very deep meaning included in the words. So therefore, by reciting the sutras, faith can develop in one's mind.
第四个就是我们要念诵经文，因为这个经文本身的词句就有很大的功德，我们进行多念诵的话，也会使我们的信心增上。
So therefore, with this we have spoken that of the different faults that can occur while receiving the Dharma, and also the what we need in its place, which is the faith, and also we have spoken of the causes of faith.
以上我们就讲了我们闻法的时候要远离的一些过患，以及闻法的时候我们需要做些什么，包括我们要讲了我们需要的信心，以及如何来培养这些信心。
Now to speak of the actual kind of way of receiving the Dharma, like the speak in respect to the actions of the body and the speech and the mind. While receiving the Dharma, it is first important to understand that there's a special exception, I guess you would say, for those that are sick. For those that are sick, they do not need to follow all of the rules when receiving the Dharma.
接下来我们就是要讲真正听了佛法的时候，我们身语意要所行持的一些做法当然这里有一个特例，就是对生病的人的一种特别的开始。
Otherwise, if you're not sick and if you're perfectly healthy, then while receiving the Dharma, you're not allowed to wear your hat, it is said that you're not allowed to wear your hat. So if you're wearing a hat, you're supposed to take your hat off while receiving the Dharma. And if you have your hair tied like as a top knot, I guess you'd say, then you need to untie that hair and let it loose down. Basically, you're not allowed to have any kind of top knot on your head, a bun, or I guess you'd say, while receiving the Dharma. You need to untie it.
我们如果是身体健康的情况下听了佛法的话，我们听课的时候不能戴帽子，或者是说我们如果头发是盘起的，或者头上有一个发揪的话，我们要把头发放下来。
And you're not allowed to. You should not, I guess you'd say, you should not sit on a very high seat while receiving the Dharma from the teacher. And if the teacher is in front of you, you should most certainly sit on a lower seat than the teacher is sitting on.
我们也不能坐在非常高的座位上，如果甚至是在我们面前的话，我们一定要选一个低的位置坐。
Also, one should not hold a bunch of stuff, whether it be in the past it would be weapons, but because in the past people were more barbaric, I guess I would say, but in these days it would be holding phones or other distracting things that would distract you from receiving the Dharma properly. So you should have, it is best if you have your hands empty. If you're going to take notes and do anything that is in connection with the Dharma, then that is of course okay. But other than that, it is best to have your hands empty.
还有就是我们手里不能拿很多的东西，在过去的时候，因为还是比较原始的情况下，可能那些人手里会持有武器等等。但是我们现在听法的话，我们就手里不能拿很多的东西，我们的手里面说要除了记笔记听课的话，可以手里有东西，其他的时候手里不能拿东西。
And you should not listen to the Dharma with your back really leaned and too relaxed, or you shouldn't have your legs, out, legs stretched out like the Westerners do in front of the teachers. That is kind of actually not right. But of course, if you have really pain in doing it, then if you have a lot of pain in sitting in the posture, then that's understandable. Or if you're handicapped or sick or unwell. Other than that, if you're perfectly healthy, you should be sitting straight, very, you should be straight. Your spine should be something kind of like very straight, like coins stacked upon each other, very straight, and not leaned in too much in the front or backward.
我们听课的时候，坐着的时候，我们人也不能靠在非常舒适的靠垫上，或者是人是一种非常放松的姿态，腿伸开这样。西方人那样听课的坐姿其实是不对的。当然，除非如果我们这样做不舒服，或者是我们身有残疾，或者是生病的时候，那可以那没有关系。但是其他情况下的话，我们听课的时候脊背应该挺直，就像许多的硬币摞在一起那样，脊背挺直的。非常恭敬的听课。
As for actions of the speech, you should not speak of, you should not end up speaking of gossip, getting yourself into any gossip while the teacher's teaching, or any kind of conversations with others, unless it's an emergency, of course. And after the teacher has completed the teaching, it is important to say thank you. It is said the Kadambas recommend saying thank you to the teacher, but of course prayers as we do right now at the end, the dedication prayers and all of that is good enough, I believe.
从语的方面来说，我们听课的时候不能口说绮语，也不能交头接耳，除了是紧急的情况下。在噶当派有个传统，就听完课之后会对圣智师说感谢，说谢谢。我们现在听课的之后的话，当然也有我们念诵的回向文等等。
As for the mind, it's just as I mentioned earlier, get rid of all of those, make sure all of those faults are not present, and when receiving the teachings, it should be with the thought of attaining enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings that you are receiving this teaching.
从义的角度来说，我们刚才所讲述的那些六垢等等都是要远离的。我们的发心也应该是为了度一切众生成佛的发心而去听课。
And after receiving the teaching, it's important to dedicate it, dedicate all of the merit of receiving the teaching towards the enlightenment of all sentient beings. What dedication means is basically from whatever good action we do, if it's like receiving a teaching from the teacher, or if we do a practice by ourselves. In this case, it is receiving a teaching from the teacher. So by listening to the teaching, a good deed has been accumulated. A great deed has been accumulated. So we need to save that deed because it can go to waste if you do not dedicate it. If you do not dedicate it, the result of that good deed may suddenly occur to oneself like a happiness, and then the deed will go to waste. So we need to save it, and the way to save it is by dedicating it toward the enlightenment of all sentient beings, which means you pray that by the merit attained from receiving the teaching from this teacher, from my teacher, may this merit serve as a cause for all sentient beings to attain enlightenment in the future. So that is dedication. So we need to do that.
同样的，我们听课之后的话，要做回向，就是为了要让一切众生成佛解脱而回向。 不管是我们听课是从善知识那里得到的佛法，还是我们自己学习的话，其中都会攒许许多多的功德。但是如果我们听完课之后不回向的话，这个善根也会浪费掉，所以我们要把它保存好。那保存的方式就是我们听完课之后，要虔诚的希望，以这个听课的善根的功德，愿一切众生都能够。愿这个都能够成为一切众生在未来能够解脱成佛的因。
So with this, we have completed the teaching on the proper way to receive the teachings, Dharma teachings. Now we will recite the prayer to Gyaltseng Muchu Tome, and then start the teaching on the 37 practices of Bodhisattva.
以上我们就讲完了如何行持以及闻法的行为。接下来的话，我们就会念诵礼赞托美桑波仁波切的一个礼赞文。接下来我们就会讲佛子行37颂的偈颂。
So because today is his anniversary, he is very, you could say, very present of his, and he is present. Of course, he is always present for sentient beings who are praying to him, but especially present on this day, on his anniversary. So visualizing him in front of you while reciting this prayer, pray to him that he bless you to be able to practice this teaching, which was composed by himself, and for the right understanding to be born in one's mind, for him to bless one for the right understanding to be born.
因为今天是托美桑波的圆寂日，虽然当然他一直从来没有离开过我们，但是因为今天是他的圆寂日，我们对他虔诚的祈请的话，会得到非常殊胜的加持。希望他能够加持我们，能够如法的学习以及行持这个佛子行37颂，能够让我们的心中产生正见。
Lama dan la pe la cha tsa lo ye tso chudre yong so so pa de le ze tambo gu ye re bon chen ye be chen zo le zho rab do ze Changzhou Semye Zhongbe We Gala Jen. Tuja Lingxi We Na Nambara Gyu Taye Shendun Kulgi Mangala Xin. Tuje Chenbe Gaden Geba Dang Keba Pudu Zhongwe Yunde Nye. Ninje Begara Chewa Lezin Be Chere Sewa Musum Nawa Shin Kare Chede Gase Jebada Rabdo Lule Tome Shabla Di Deve Kela Tave Tebe Rabdo Gune de Mendo Jing Purbe Gewa Medo Jungwa de Gungan Gyase Jela Nebala Sho.
So to speak of this work, it has 3 topics, I guess you would say. First is the praise and the promise to teach. That is the preliminary. Then there is the actual text. And then at the end, there's the conclusion. So today we will speak of the praise, the preliminary, there's the praise and the promise to teach, and among those two, we will speak of the praise today.
这个佛子行37颂一共分为3个主题，就是礼赞顶礼，是一个主题，然后正文以及最后的结束语。我们今天要讲的就是这个礼赞顶礼文。
So it starts with Namo Lokeshwaraya. So this is in Sanskrit. Namo means I pay homage or homage. And Lokeshwaraya is Avalokiteshvara. It's his name. And Avalokiteshvara has many different names, and this is one of his names, Lokeshwara, which means Lord of the universe. Lokesh means, Lok means, I guess you would say, the universe or the world. And Vara, Ishvara. Ishvara means Lord. So Namo Lokeshwaraya means I pay homage to the Lord of the universe. And that means that I pay homage to Avalokiteshvara.
首先第一句，首先第一句，这个是一句梵文啊。首先 Namo 的意思就是顶礼，然后之后这个 Lokeshwara 就是观世音菩萨，也就是世间自在王的意思。这个 Lok 就是世间，也就是宇宙整个世间的意思。然后这个Chikvara 就是自在王，也就是顶礼世间自在王，就是顶礼观世音菩萨。
So as we all know, Avalokiteshvara is a very popular deity, Bodhisattva in the Mahayana tradition. As he is in Tibetan is he, in Indian Buddhism also he is considered as a male. He appears in the male form. Of course, there's no real male or female on the enlightened state. There's no such difference, but in the form, there's in Indian and Tibetan Buddhism he appears as a male, and in Chinese Buddhism originally as a male, but then later changed into a female form.
观世音菩萨也就是大乘佛教里面非常著名的一个佛菩萨，在藏地的话，他是以男生的身份显现，在汉地的话是以女生。当然，从政务的角度来说，没有男女的区分。
So Avalokiteshvara is very important because he is the embodiment of the compassion of all of the Buddhas.
观世音菩萨是非常的重要，因为他是所有佛菩萨大悲心的总集。
And because compassion is the essence of the Mahayana practices, a most important cause to attain enlightenment, thus becomes a very important deity.
因为大悲心是大乘佛教的精华，也就是我们要获得证悟当中最重要的一部分，也就是为什么观世音菩萨是大乘佛教里面非常重要的一个菩萨。
So to briefly speak about the story of Avalokiteshvara, since there seems to be some time, Avalokiteshvara was born in the Pure Land of Amitabha, Sukhavati. And he was born from Buddha Amitabha himself.
我们接下来讲一个观世音菩萨的公案观世音菩萨是从阿弥陀佛的净土中诞生，他也是就是从阿弥陀佛中诞生。
And the way he was born is that Buddha Amitabha emanated one white ray of light from his right eye and one blue ray of light from his left eye. And from the white ray of light, Avalokiteshvara was born, and from the blue ray of light from his left eye, Tara was born. So that is how they were born, miraculously born, but they were born indirectly from Buddha Amitabha.
观世音菩萨从阿弥陀佛的身上化现出来的方式，就是阿弥陀佛的左眼放射出一道蓝光，右眼发射出一道白光，左眼就诞生了度母，右眼就诞生了观世音菩萨。
the way he was actually born was in the Sukhavati Pure Land. There was a pond, a lotus pond, that was known as the lotus pond was known as endowed with the lotuses. So that was the name of the pond, and it so happened that there was a universal emperor, universal emperor in Sukhavati, known as his name was Gun. We call it Sambuchok, so it would be excellent goodness, something like that.
观世音菩萨他所显现或者是他所诞生的方法，就是从在阿弥陀佛净土当中，从一个充满了莲花的一个莲池当中诞生。当时进这个阿弥陀佛净土里面有一个世间王，刚才法王子说的名字不是很确定什么意思，之后找一下发给师兄。
Probably you could call his name Supreme Goodness or Goodness Supreme. Anyway, we'll go with Supreme Goodness. And then, so he was a universal emperor who had control over all of the continents. There are 4 continents according to the Buddhist cosmology of continents, of which our world is one of the continents, considered one of the continents. So he is a very powerful universal emperor, basically. And he did not have, although he did have many queens, he did not have any sons. So he wished for a son.
刚才所说的这个王，就法王子说，也可以把它理解为具一切功德王。他当时是掌控了所有的4大洲。他当时虽然有很多的王后，但是他却没有一个儿子。
And so wanting a son, he waited for a son, but no son was ever born. And then, as I mentioned, there was that lotus pond, and usually the king, the universal emperor, Supreme Goodness, would send a person who could walk very fast, who had swift legs, to go to walk onto the pond and collect flowers from the pond, so that the emperor could make offerings to the 3 jewels.
当时这个具一切功德王，他就一直非常希求有一个儿子，然后他当时在他当时经常会派一个能够走路非常快的一个人，能够经常到这个莲池当中去，就是走过这些莲花，去采摘花朵，然后供养3宝。
And then one day, the person with swift legs noticed a unusually large lotus in the middle of the pond that seemed to be half open, I believe. And it seemed quite marvelous to him. So he informed the emperor of the lotus in the lake. And the emperor immediately said, it's certain that there's someone that is going to be born a miraculous birth from that lotus. So saying that, the emperor prepared made great preparations to invite the being that was to be born from the lotus. He made preparations with parasols and the chariots and the boats, and with clothes and jewels to invite the Bodhisattva to be born.
有一天，那个走路非常快的那个人，他在去采摘花朵的时候，看到了一个非常巨大而且一个半开的一个莲花。他当时就马上通知了这个具一切功德王，然后当时这个君王就说，一定会有一个非常殊胜的佛菩萨会从这个莲花当中诞生。然后他就马上准备了很多的贡品，比如说珠宝啊、衣物等等，去迎接这个佛菩萨的诞生。
And then, right around that time, the Bodhisattva emerged from the lotus. And the Bodhisattva, his form was that of a 16-year-old teenager, and very beautiful to behold.
然后就在这个时候，这个 菩萨就从这个莲花当中诞生了，是以一个16岁的男生的一个童子诞生，而且是非常的相好庄严。
And the emperor invited the Bodhisattva to his palace, located in Sukhavati. And the Bodhisattva came to be known as born from the lotus born, and also came to be known as essence of the lotus.
当时这个具一切功德王就请他去这个净土的当中的宫殿，然后就把他命名为或者是说把他就是认定为是莲花的精华，或者是具一切莲花的功德的一个精华。
Shortly after the Bodhisattva was invited to the palace, the emperor went to visit Buddha Amitabha and asked Buddha Amitabha about the prince, about the Bodhisattva. And Buddha Amitabha said that he is the very activity of all of the Buddhas, the very activity of all of the Buddhas that is performing the benefit of sentient beings. And he is born from the minds of all of the Buddhas, and his name is the noble Avalokiteshvara.
当时阿弥陀佛就说，这个菩萨是具有利益一切众生事业的功德，也把它命名为观世音菩萨。
And then after he said that, shortly after that, the Bodhisattva lived with the emperor for quite some time, and then one day the Bodhisattva looked down upon the world, upon the universe, and he saw all of the sentient beings suffering, many suffering due to ignorance, many due to pride, and many due to anger, and the like. And due to that, when he saw such a sad situation, he developed a great compassion and became very sad that 2 tears dropped from his eyes. 2 teardrops came from his eyes, and from the right teardrop, Tara emerged or was born, and from the left teardrop, the goddess Bhikuti was born.
当时观世音菩萨和这个君王居住在一起很长的时间之后，他朝下看世间的一切，然后发现很多世间的人因为无明傲慢或者是以嗔恨心带来了巨大的痛苦。当时观世音菩萨就产生了非常强烈的大悲心，也就因此落下了2滴眼泪，其中的右眼的眼泪就形成了度母，左眼的眼泪就形成另外一个佛菩萨，不好意思，我找一下那个名字。
And Tara and both the goddess Bhikuti encouraged Avalokiteshvara to train in the mind of enlightenment, and to train in compassion, and to not give up on helping sentient beings, to not be lazy in performing the needs of sentient beings.
当时观世音菩萨就教授度母一定要以大悲心摄持众生，不能伤害众生。
And they said that both of them will support him in his actions, in his work of helping sentient beings. And after saying that, they both dissolved back into his eyes. And the emperor noticed all of that, and he asked Avalokiteshvara why Avalokiteshvara cried, and why did the 2 goddesses appear from his eyes. And Avalokiteshvara said he cried because he saw the sufferings of sentient beings, and he told the emperor that the 2 goddesses appeared because to show their support to him and to encourage him to help sentient beings. And then he told the emperor that I wish to fulfill my destiny of helping sentient beings. Will you allow that? Because until then, the emperor was sort of acting as his father. And to that, the emperor said, all of the Buddhas of the past, present, and future have and will attain enlightenment just like taking considerations like you just did. So therefore, I completely support your wishes. And so saying that, he gave the allowance for Avalokiteshvara to perform the deed, the work of helping sentient beings.
当时观世音菩萨因为大悲心所流下来的2滴眼泪，就右眼就形成了绿度母，左眼形成了白度母。在得到了观世音菩萨的教法，就是一定要以大悲心摄持众生之后，又回到了观世音菩萨的身体。当时观世音菩萨的可以说是父亲，也就是当时的君王，就问观世音菩萨为什么会哭。观世音菩萨就说，因为看到众生的痛苦，非常希望能够去救度众生，然后就问就祈请他的父亲能否到人间去救度众生。当时的君王就说，过去以及现在以及未来所有的众生都会因为像观世音菩萨这样的大悲心而成佛，所以也就同意了观世音菩萨到人间去救度众生。
And so after giving the allowance, then Avalokiteshvara invited many Buddhas from all the directions. Especially he invited 110 million Buddhas, and he made great offerings to them. He prostrated to them, and with a great melody he made prayers to them. And he asked for guidance from all of them on how to help sentient beings.
得到这样的批准之后，观世音菩萨就邀请了100万的菩萨以及对他们做顶礼，以及问他们祈请他们开示如何救度众生的方法。
And then all of the Buddhas said that you need to train in the practices in the meditations of loving kindness and compassion to help sentient beings. And then when asked how to do that, how should he practice in the meditation of loving kindness and compassion, immediately Buddha Amitabha arrived and sat on the top of Avalokiteshvara's head. And the Buddha Amitabha entered the samadhi, the meditation known as the great radiating of light, the great radiating of light, the samadhi known as the great radiating of light. And with that samadhi, Buddha Amitabha empowered Avalokiteshvara to perform the work of helping sentient beings.
当时所有的佛都跟观世音菩萨说，一定要对众生训练对众生的无畏大悲心，这样才能够救度帮助众生。就在此时，阿弥陀佛就坐在了观世音菩萨的头顶上。阿弥陀佛在进入无量禅定的三摩地当中，以此来加持观世音菩萨。
It is said that after that, from Buddha Amitabha, it's hot, I believe. He emanated many Sambhogakaya fields, and in those Sambhogakaya, countless Sambhogakaya fields, there were countless Sambhogakaya Buddhas teaching the Dharma. And from the hearts of those countless Sambhogakaya Buddhas, countless Nirmanakaya Buddha fields were emanated. And there were countless Nirmanakaya Buddhas residing in those Nirmanakaya Buddha fields emanated as well. And many emanations of Avalokiteshvara and Tara and the like were emanated to help all sentient beings across the universe.
之后阿弥陀佛的心间就化现出了无量的报身佛以及无量的化身佛，来居住在报身佛的刹土当中，也化现出了许许多多的观世音菩萨以及度母来帮助救度众生。
Then Avalokiteshvara is said to have emanated, sent light rays to the 6 realms, the God realm, the demigod, the human, the animal, the hungry ghost, and the hell realm. And he sent 6 different rays of light, and from them 6 different Buddhas emerged. And if you see the Tibetan drawings of the wheel of life, you'll see in each realm there's a Buddha, a standing Buddha of a different color in each of the realms. So those were emanated by Avalokiteshvara himself. Those were emanations of him, emanated from him to help sentient beings and to liberate the sentient beings of each of those realms.
当时观世音菩萨对六道不同的就放出了不同的光芒，也就由此在六道当中诞生了不同的佛菩萨，都是以观世音菩萨的化现。就好像我们看藏传佛教的六道轮回图的时候，都能够在每一道当中看到一个站立的佛，那都是观世音菩萨的化身。
And so Avalokiteshvara did that, and after quite some time, he went to the summit of Mount Meru. Mount Meru is the highest mountain according to the Buddhist universe, Buddhist cosmology. And so he went to the summit of Mount Meru, and he looked down where he could see all of the realms and the sentient beings. And when he looked down, he noticed that although he had earlier emanated so many Buddhas to help sentient beings, to liberate them, to free them from suffering, to free them from samsara, when he looked down now, it looked like it hadn't really made much of a difference because this number of sentient beings had not lessened.
之后观世音菩萨就到了须弥山的山顶去看这个世界，但是观世音菩萨就发现，就算化现了这么多的佛菩萨去救度众生的话，众生的数量却还是没有减少，还是有那么多的众生在受苦。
And before he had emanated such Buddhas, when he invited the Buddhas, all of the Buddhas, he made a promise to them that he will help all sentient beings, to liberate all sentient beings. And in case any thought of self-liberation, wish to attain self-liberation, to give up helping sentient beings occurs in his mind, may his head explode into 10 pieces. So he made a vow like that earlier. And now when he looked down, he noticed that the number of sentient beings had not lessened, and that saddened him. And he became discouraged. And he thought himself that it is true that the number of sentient beings is limitless. And I think that I cannot help them all. And maybe it's best if I just attain liberation for myself and to give up my vow. So when he thought that, when such a thought arose in his mind, immediately his head burst into many pieces.
之前观世音菩萨在许多的佛菩萨面前保证，要让所有的众生解脱。如果带有一丝丝的自私心，希望自己希求解脱不去救度众生的话，那就让他自己的头骨粉碎就是粉碎向十方。但是就是因为看到了世间所有的众生的数量还没有减少，还是有那么多的众生在受苦，观世音菩萨就决定放弃他的誓言，就在那一刹那，他的头骨就粉碎向了十方。
And so when that happened, he experienced great pain because his head had just exploded into so many pieces. And he then cried out to his guru, Buddha Amitabha, for help. And Buddha Amitabha immediately came to Avalokiteshvara's rescue. And Buddha Amitabha gathered all of the fragments of Avalokiteshvara's head, gathered them together and formed 11. He created 11 heads and gave Avalokiteshvara 11 heads. He blessed Avalokiteshvara to have 11 heads and one wrathful head on the top.
当时观世音菩萨就感受到了巨大的痛苦，因为他的头骨就彻底的粉碎了。当时他就向阿弥陀佛祈祷，阿弥陀佛就马上来到了观世音菩萨的身边，把那些粉碎的碎片都重新拾起，然后加持观世音菩萨有11个头，每一个头都落在之前那个头上面。
So he blessed Avalokiteshvara to have 11 heads. As you can see, there's 3 on the first 3 levels. On the first 3 levels, there are 3 heads. Each of the first 3 levels have 3 heads: white, blue, white, red, and green. It's in different orders on each of the different levels. On top of on the 4th level, there is one wrathful head, which is a wrathful head that Buddha Amitabha blessed Avalokiteshvara to have to tame those sentient beings that that cannot be tamed through peaceful means. They need to be tamed through wrathful means. He blessed Avalokiteshvara to have a wrathful head for that. And then on the very top, the 11th head, Amitabha's own head rests.
受阿弥陀佛的加持之后，观世音菩萨就有11个头，然后就好像我们在唐卡当中能看到的，前面就首先这3层都是有白、红和绿这样的头，然后在上面一个就是一个愤怒相的一个头，也就是来救度一些烦恼极其深重的众生，然后最上面就是阿弥陀佛他自己的头。
And then Buddha Amitabha said, as there's no end, no beginning and no end to samsara, you must continue, you must help all sentient beings until samsara, until all sentient beings are liberated. And saying that, he blessed Avalokiteshvara with 1,000 arms as well. And Avalokiteshvara prayed that there be 1,000 universal emperors emerging from his arms, each of his palms or arms, and also from the 1,000 eyes on the palms of his hands, may the 1,000 fortunate Buddhas of this aeon emerge as well. So he prayed that, and that Buddha Amitabha blessed that to happen.
阿弥陀佛就向观世音菩萨说，因为轮回是无始无终的，然后他就加持观世音菩萨，直到众生灭度之前都要一直不停的行持救度众生的事业，然后他就加持观世音菩萨有千手，然后千手上面又有千眼，化现出无量的佛菩萨救度众生。
And so that is the kind of the story of the forms, but that is one of the most popular. One of the forms is the one that is you can see right next to me, which is the 4-armed form. And then there's also 2-armed form. There's iconic and as well as non-iconic forms of Genesis. There are many, many forms.
这个就是比较著名的圣观音的公案，然后其他观世音菩萨显现的方式，就好像法王子背后的这个4臂观音或者是我们平时看到的2臂观音。
And all of the forms, these different forms have their own different purposes. It is to help, because there's so many different beings, there's so many different forms of Avalokiteshvara to provide with the needs of each of those sentient beings.
所有的观世音菩萨都有不同的形象，因为都是为了度化不同的众生而显现。
So to start with the first verse, this is the verse of homage to Avalokiteshvara. It says, though he sees that in all phenomena there's no coming and going, he strives solely for the sake of beings. So that means that although jealousy understands that there's no such, in reality, there's no such thing as eternalism or nihilism or permanent or impermanent and such concepts on the ultimate level. There's no such distinctions on the ultimate level. Because of his past great aspirations, because he sees that sentient beings, because he sees that although there are no such distinctions on the ultimate level, because he sees that sentient beings, not understanding that, create good and bad karma and get trapped in samsara and are not able to escape. He thus has great compassion for them, even though on the ultimate level it does not truly exist. So therefore he still helps sentient beings. So this is what it is saying, that it shows here that Avalokiteshvara has a good understanding of the reality of phenomena, the ultimate nature, but just because of that doesn't mean that he has given up on helping sentient beings. He still helps sentient beings, and he helps sentient beings on a vast scale.
首先，第一句偈颂就是虽见诸法无来去，然为精勤利众者。也就是说，世间当中的我们所说的常无常，从究竟的方面来说都是不存在的。但是就是因为看到众生因为不懂这一些道理，然后我们就会造各种各样的善或者是恶业，使我们继续在轮回当中流转。也就是因为看到 众生如此流转的话，就产生了大悲心。也就是说，就算在究竟的层面上没有常与无常或者是来与去的这样的区别这样的说法，但是还是因为如此，还是会产生想要救度众生的心，希望众生能够摆脱这样的见解。
And so the way he strives is that it is actually effortless the way he helps sentient beings, because he is already a fully enlightened Buddha. It's just he appears in the form of a Bodhisattva, but not just Bodhisattva, but he appears in the form of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, kings, queens, teachers, rich people, or even beggars, even as animals, whatever helps sentient beings, whatever position he can help sentient beings, in whatever form he will emanate in that form to help sentient beings.
虽然佛菩萨救度众生的方式是任运自成的，但是在真正救度众生的时候，还是以众生需要的方式来显现出不同的样子来救度众生。
And so it says, to the sublime teacher, inseparable from Avalokiteshvara, the protector of beings, I pay constant homage with respectful body, speech, and mind. So this is very easy to understand. To the sublime teacher and inseparable from Avalokiteshvara means to my guru, to Gyaltsen Ngurchen Thoma's own guru. He had many gurus. It could be to any of them, to all of them probably. Who is inseparable from Avalokiteshvara means that his guru is Avalokiteshvara in nature, in the form of a human guru, and Avalokiteshvara, the protector of beings. To his guru, who is not different from Avalokiteshvara, I, Gyaltsen Ngurchen Thome, pay constant homage. Constantly pay homage means I constantly pay my respects with my body, speech, and mind at all times.
接下来两句就是说，盛世库主观音前三门恒始敬顶礼，也就是说顶礼所有与观世音菩萨无别的上师，也就是说上师都是观世音菩萨的化现，都是与观世音菩萨都是无二无别的。我们就是以此恒始顶礼，就是说我们恒时不断的以我们的三门身口意三门去顶礼我们的上师。
Body posturations, and body of course means the actual posturations that we usually understand as. Speech is to recite praises of the Guru and Avalokiteshvara. The mind is to have faith in Avalokiteshvara and the Guru. So that is the way of posturations of respect for body, speech, and mind.
身语意的顶礼分别就是说，身体就是我们肢体上的顶礼，语言的话就是念诵上师的祈请文以及观世音菩萨的祈请文以及心咒，意的话就是对上师以及观世音菩萨有强烈的信心。
And so now that we have finished the explanation of this verse, what does this mean? What does this verse mean? What is the main message that this verse is telling us? What does it mean? What we can understand is that this verse is telling us that the essence of this verse is that it is saying, for a Dharma practitioner, we need two things. We need to not have, and we could say for a Dharma practitioner, there's one thing that we do not need and one thing that we do need. One thing that we do not need is we do not need obstacles. We could say there's two things we need. The first is to be free from obstacles. So let's put it that way. The first thing that we need is to be free from obstacles. And the second thing that we need as a Dharma practitioner is to have great merit.
我们现在就是解释完了这个宋词本身的句意，然后它真正的意义是什么？它真正的精华是什么？对我们修行人来说，我们最需要的就是两件事情，第一个就是远离障碍，第二个就是积攒功德以及福报。
This is the main message of what this verse is conveying.
这也就是这个偈颂最主要想表达的意思。
Because as a Dharma practitioner, we do not need obstacles. If we have obstacles, then we're not able to properly practice the Dharma, as I mentioned earlier. And also we need merit. And the way we can be free from obstacles, and the way we can accumulate merit is by paying homage in our respects to the Guru and the meditation of deity, the Yidam. So this is what this verse is saying. It's saying that if you pay homage to your Guru and the teacher and the Yidam, or the meditation of deity, then you will be free from obstacles and will attain merit.
对修行人来说，我们首先要远离障碍，如果有障碍的话，就不能如法行识。第二个就是我们要有资粮功德。如果我们想得到这两种的话，那我们就是要恒时的顶礼我们上师以及顶礼本尊。
Now, how is that? How is that possible? For example, to speak of the first, that by paying respects to the teacher and the Yidam deity, you'll be free from obstacles, is that there was once a Brahmin, an Indian practitioner, a Hindu follower, and he meditated on the Hindu deity known as Shiva for a long period of time. And then eventually he did accomplish Shiva, and Shiva appeared to him, and Shiva bestowed a boon to him, I guess you would say, or granted his wishes. And Shiva gave him a special gift. The gift was known as the wind lasso, the lasso of the wind, I guess you would say. So what was special about this lasso is that whoever you threw this lasso upon, that person would die instantly. So that was the power of the lasso. So now that this Brahmin had attained this lasso, he used it to threaten others, he used it to threaten to kill others if they did not follow him. And so because of that, everyone was scared of him and they had no choice to follow him.
那我们能够获得这两种功德的，就是一个是远离障碍，一个是积累资粮的原因是什么呢？举一个公案来说，我们之前有一个梵天，他一直对湿婆做顶礼，具有非常强烈的信心。后来他从湿婆那里得到了一个礼物，应该是一个风的一个咒语，然后这个咒语就是他能够就是一旦接触到这个风的咒语的话，那些人就会死掉，然后这个梵天他就以此去威胁其他的人。
And such the Brahmin out of fear, but there was only one child, there was only one person, and that was a child that did not follow the Brahmin. And the Brahmin noticed that child, and he decided to throw the lasso upon that child. But then when he did that, the child did not die. And then he did that. He threw the lasso upon the child several times, and the child did not die at all. And then he started to doubt the power of the lasso. The Brahmin started to doubt and thought, has the power of the lasso been exhausted, or has it been gone, or what has happened? And so he then checked if the power was still there or not, and by throwing the lasso upon a dog, and the dog immediately died. And so then he became very curious, and he asked the child, I threw the lasso upon you. This lasso has the power to kill, but it didn't kill you. So what is so special about you? When he asked that, the child said, I do not have anything really special about me, but I do have great reverence or respect and faith towards my teacher and my deity, the three jewels. So after he said that, then even the Brahmin developed some faith and later became a monk, is said. So from this story, we can understand that if you have great reverence towards your teacher and your meditation or deity, you will be protected from harm and will not face any obstacles.
当时这个梵天拿他的这个就是这个咒语或者是其他的一个东西，我不是很确定这个拉索是什么。他去到处威胁人的话，其中有一个小孩就没有因为受他的这个威胁去听从他。 然后这个梵天就以他的这个咒语去打了这个小孩，但是这个小孩却没有像这个咒语像之前师婆跟他说一旦接触到就会死掉那样在这个小孩身上起到作用，也就是这个小孩没有因此而死掉。但是这个梵天他同样的以这个去打一个狗的话，那个狗就马上死掉了。梵天就问这小孩说，为什么我以这个去打你的话你没有死掉，你有什么特别的功能？这小孩就说他没有什么特别的功能，但是他对上师三宝以及本尊有强烈的信心。听了这番话之后，梵天也对上师三宝产生了很强烈的信心，之后也受持戒律，成为了一名僧人。也就是说，这个公案它给我们想表达的意思，也就是我们修行人一定要对上师三宝有强烈的信心。
And as I mentioned, as we as Dharma practitioners need merit as well, and we can accumulate merit by respecting the teacher, the Yidam, the deity, the meditation of deity. And a story to illustrate that is a story of the Buddha. One time, the Buddha went on an alms round, which is to collect food, as it is the tradition for monks in India to do. And on such a time, he came to a household, and the lady of the household offered him a small amount of food, like about a bowl of rice, one bowl of rice, with great respect. And when she offered that, after she offered that bowl of rice, the Buddha gave a prophecy to her, saying that due to the merit accumulated by her, due to her merit accumulated by offering the bowl of rice to the Buddha, in the future she will attain the state of a Pratyeka Buddha, which is the half Buddha in the future. So he gave such a prophecy to her. And after he gave that prophecy, her husband was around and heard the Buddha give that prophecy, and he started to think that the Buddha must be going through a difficult time these days with food, with gathering food, because he's just by that lady, by his wife offering a small offering, he's giving such a big prophecy to her. So he thought the Buddha must be quite desperate these days. And so then he asked the Buddha, why did he lie to his wife that she would attain the Pratyeka Buddhahood? So he asked that question to the Buddha.
同样的，我们对于修行人来说，我们也需要无量的资粮这个也是可以从尊敬以及对上师三宝有信心当中所得到。从讲释迦牟尼佛的一个公案来说，当时释迦牟尼佛去化缘，有一位女施主供养了释迦牟尼佛，就仅仅是一小碗饭的这个功德，释迦牟尼佛就受记这位女施主她以后可以得到辟支佛的果位。当时这位女施主的丈夫就想，当时佛陀一定是非常的困难，因为光是供养一小碗米饭就可以得到佛受记的辟支佛的果位。然后他就质问释迦牟尼佛为什么要这样子撒谎。
And then the Buddha replied to the householder, "You seem to be someone that has lived for quite a lot of years up until now. So you must have seen something small result into something small grow, or something small result into something big." And the householder said, "Yes, I have. It is the Niagara tree in my backyard, which was once in the beginning nothing but a small seedling, nothing but a small seed." And then the Buddha said, "How is that so? What proof do you have that?" The Buddha further asked the householder, "What proof do you have that that small seed grew into the big Niagara, the tree that is there now?" And the householder replied, "Of course it grew into the big Niagara, the tree that there is now, because I have seen it grown over the years with my own eyes." And then the Buddha said, "Well, likewise, I have seen with my wisdom mind, or my wisdom eyes, of the lady who has just offered me the bowl full of rice. that she will attain the Pratyeka Buddhahood in the future. So it's the same for both of us. You've seen it grown. You've directly seen the seed grow into the big tree, and I've directly seen with my wisdom mind, our wisdom eye, of her attaining the Pratyeka Buddhahood in the future. So it's the same. It's the same. And after the Buddha said that, then finally he understood that from small results can come occur big. From small causes, big results can be born. So what I'm saying is that as Dharma practitioners, we need to accumulate merit, and not just big merit, and but also small merit. We need to pay attention to the small merit. We need to accumulate small merit as well, not just focus on the big merit, but any kind of merit, whatever it is, big or small. We need to accumulate it all. And we should not look down upon the small merit, thinking that it's small, because from small merit, it is possible for a big result to come from that. So, which as the story just illustrated. So, we need to keep that in mind.
当时佛陀就回答，这个人他就说，看起来你也是有了很多生活经验的人，就问他有没有在生活当中看到过小因生大果的事情。然后这个女施主的丈夫就说，当然有，因为他的后院里面就有一个棋子树，然后他就说这个树也是因为很小的种子，然后就长成了我现在看后院里这么大的一棵树。然后师尊就问他说。说为什么这么确信是这个种子能够长成这么大的树？然后这个人他就说，因为他亲眼看到这个小的种子一天一天就长成了这么大的一棵大树。然后师尊就说，那同样的，以师尊的慧眼也能够看到这个女施主现在供养师尊的这样一个善因，未来都能够得到辟支佛的果位。这样的这两个都是同样的道理，都是小因生大果的这样的一个原理。所以这个公案他所想表达的意思就是说，我们不能因为善想而不为，我们不能因为只是专注于一个非常伟大的事而去行持，平时看起来非常微小的善业而不去行持非常微小的善业我们如法行持的话，也能够产生无量的功德，也能够是很大的果。
So therefore, I would like you all to think about Avalokiteshvara for this 2 weeks. For the 2 weeks, think about Avalokiteshvara, think about the Bodhisattva as much as you can. In any situation, happy, sad, or neutral, any kind of situation. And also think about the meaning of this verse. Think about the meaning of the verse a bit, and also try to remember that what this is the message of this verse, what it is conveying, which is that for Dharma practitioners, we need to be free from obstacles and accumulate merit, to be endowed with merit. And the best way to be free from obstacles and to be endowed with merit is by respecting the sublime teacher and the deity, which is Avalokiteshvara in this case. And so try to think of that every day. And every day you think about it, just think about it, and it'll lead you to different realizations eventually, and then try to write any experiences you get at the end of the day. Write it down, and then and keep a record of it. And I think that would be very good.
那以上我们就讲完了这2个寄颂，然后希望这2周当中我们能够一直都意念观世音菩萨，以及一直都意念这些寄颂里面所讲述的内容不管是我们经历到开心或者是不开心的事情，都要经常思考意念观世音菩萨以及这个寄颂里面我们刚才想讲诵的这个意义。这是非常具有功德的，然后我们一定要为了要远离障碍，或者是以及得到无量的资粮的话，就要恒时顶礼以及意念观世音菩萨。我们每天都要思考这个寄颂的意义，然后我们可以把我们得到的感悟记录下来，然后每一天当中都去在不断的思考，就好像之前所说的，都能够获得新的感悟，然后一起把它记录下来。
So we will leave it here for today.
然后我们今天讲到这里。
Ma nam ka da nya simje tamje lama sangye rinpo che la gyabso chivu sangye che dang gendye nam la gyabso chivu lama yidam kanje cho la gyabso chivu ma nam ka da nya simje tamje lama sangye rinpo che la gyabso chivu sangye che dang gendye nam la gyabso chivu Lama yidam kanje chola gyabso chiu. Rangsem donsa chige gula gyabso chiu. Ma nam ka da nyambe semje tamje. Lama sangye rinpo chela gyabso chiu. Sangye chedan gendye namla gyabso chiu. Lama yidam kanje chola gyabso chiu. Rangsem donsa chige gula gyabso chiu. 我摩尼呗咩吽，摩尼呗咩吽，我摩尼呗咩吽，摩尼呗咩吽，我摩尼呗咩吽，摩尼呗咩吽，我摩尼呗咩吽，摩尼呗咩吽，摩尼呗咩吽，摩尼呗咩吽，摩尼呗咩吽，摩尼呗咩。Money bemel, money 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 bemel. Money bemel, 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 money bemel. Money bemel, money bemel, money bemel, money bemel, money bemel, money bemel. Money bemel, 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 money bemel. Money bemel, money bemel, money bemel, money bemel, money bemel. Money bemel, 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 money bemel. Money bemel, 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 money bemel. Money bemel, money bemel, money bemel, money bemel, money bemel, money bemel. Money bemel, money bemel, money bemel, money bemel, money bemel, money bemel, money bemel. Money bemel, 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 money bemel. Money bemel, money bemel. Oh money bemel. Vedan loburo kenle gyurba ye dendan nedan jungbe tsewa so semche yeme deve nenam gun jide kamso chungora magiru ji chitara sheme chibe seja shin keji jigla lusem changchebe sojo nege dongla chinye ba jide kamso chungora magiru ji Chida Shinje Kanan Chuba Dara Negi Mingzam Tebe Dachebe Yeje Bada Dabe Rimso Ge Lujen Gunla Nebara Magiruji Nebe Gere Dongja Geju Dang Loburu Yejo Sumya Chuju Dang Shigya Zashe Nela Soba Yin Lujen Gunla Tsewara Magiruji Lusem dewa mali choche be jungshi chube dongla chinye ba mali shishin dangdo denpa dang tsiring neme degi denpa sho lama gunjo sumye tuje dang kanzhi chigyong sume nudu dang lenje luwa mebe dendo gi moa melam tabze zhubara sho Lama yedam sangye chansem so gyab yulo ramjam gyatse choche la zeje dongwe yangye solde na yela membe tende nyutuze kera ngage wangbe yarme da gune kangwa duja gawe nyen sena bado chenpa la yere da jen jingda shabla soba Yere jedo jegang yume kara kasang jide gyurwa monsara so. 미제 지대 관계 롤바레 데메 시바 디네 지예수 대나라레 다가라 장마라 켄제 리베 가라즈수 세제 대베 구메 경계 바 큰동시르 타량 유제소 자기 라마 남게 진담당 난조랭아 주베 된도기 대베가다 바데 사갸베 로상게레 초주르 캬규지 바데 자베 라마 렘보체 다게 지우라 베메 데쇼네 가제 침베 고네 제손데 고손 토게 응외주 자도소 치메 미시 손베 고라카나 치메 제젠라모 젠데마 치메 제라와베 소남게 치메 제예응외주 자도소 레손베메 토에게 라람네 켄제니 테랑소 예모라체 사테론도베차 게제네 두자린셰거도 다데쇼에 마원교주나리 큰게동 조견가제테제 동아람 펜데바도바라베 칠레제 사베원예가보 샤덴소에 남다침데스레기 사실라特上国别人间，不罗芒子切这种当节的，帮人也教学的网络不罗，电书所教我你不节节，空忙也教电气的年纪，才马些教别啷上啥么。老些nam叫了我去先对在小的所的做叫些对给这些把的啥给确些巴拉巴拉呢说咱们这边言多去先上算多些大的所罗面拉马说送土界党也当对算家子土多党去年沙漠给了没点别去接到所谓的对主给了接切妙王波教王zen巴面切耶涅天里诸罗大列玛切丹对耶波列南巴兰教切妙拉乔孙耶ze巴祖我自觉所爱托的里，天着根干结别南结结，托灭看多天里多了结业，是什么玩具了钱不晓得说，得到了年年所大别的。故在天间头，什么拉皮来皮，写到这边这撒样别人落在肩边，为着些有。色那么的也谈结些吧，也托念也别着那谈结呢， Ge ga na je ba long zhe ba. Ye si be co le zhuo wa shou. Jia bai ba wu qi da gen ba. Dang gun du sang bo te yang te shi de. Te da gun ge je su na long. Jing ge wa de da tang zhi la du. Tu son xie bei jiao wa tang qi. Ge mo wa kang na chou du nga ba ti. Da ge ge we za wa di ge. Kyang sang bo chi chi ra do mo wa ra gi. Chang choi gyong we gyo ba cho gyu. Bai ke zhu gya tse yong su ka we ne. Ka re che de den ba sa tse. Bai sa kya ba ye den ba ge gyuru ji. Ka jen pe ge de wan do che. Den ba den sa ke che si ba gyuru ji. Zhe be dong gu gin che me ba. Dang gun gyang chen de nam ka nyam ba shou. Okay, thank you.